A young boy, no taller than 4 feet, was seen running frantically across the alleyway. On his tail, a mob of 11 or 12 villagers. To kids his age, this would seem confusing and frightening, but not for this said boy. For him, it was a regular occurrence. Wearing a gray tattered hand-me-downs, and shorts with stitches and holes in many places, he sighed as he hit a dead end. Great. It's like Cammy just hates me, he thought bitterly. He realized a while ago that crying and begging won't do anything, so he just dealt with it. The boy with dull, seemingly lifeless eyes just knelt down, his hair shadowing his eyes. I wonder how long it'll take for the ANBU to rescue me this time. One of the villagers sneered at him. So, you brat, finally realized that running would do you no good? No response. Answer me, trash, he screeched as he kicked the boy hard in the chest. He flew a couple of feet back but didn't as so much flinch. A couple of people laughed at him, and before long they all started attacking him. Punching, kicking, stomping, slapping wherever they could, before finally, after what seemed like hours, which by this time he was already in blissful unconsciousness, an ANBU with a dog mask, short, gravity-defying silver hair appeared at the scene, along with another ANBU with long purple hair, a cat mask and a weasel-masked ANBU, a bit shorter than the other two, with black hair done in a ponytail appeared. The ones with the dog and weasel mask grabbed the villagers and body flickered out of there, most likely shunshnined them to the T&I department, while the cat-masked one picked the boy up in a fireman's carry and roof-hopped to the Hokage tower. She dropped him off in front of the Hokage's office, where she knocked on the door. A muffled "come in" was heard from the office. She opened the door and saw an old man, with a red and white hat on his head, and red and white robes. This man was Hiruzen Sarutobi, the 3rd Hokage of the hidden village in the leaves. He was smiling at who came in, but the second he noticed the limp body over her shoulder, he frowned. He truly cared for the boy, but there wasn't much he could do without revealing his heritage to the villagers, and by extension, the world, which would render them vulnerable to a Wagakure, and most likely Kumogakure as well. Currently, there were 6 people who knew Naruto's true heritage. Those people were himself, Kakashi Hatake, Jiraiya of the Sannin, Hamura Mitokado, Koharu Udatain, and Danzo Shimura, although he wouldn't be surprised if Itachi Uchiha also knew. Seriously, that boy's intellect sometimes frightened him. When conversing with Itachi, he sometimes had to remember he was chatting with a 9-year-old boy, not a fellow experienced politician. He rubbed his temples. Why did his villagers have to be so ignorant? Report, Nico, he sighed. Hokage-sama, me, Inu-senpai, and Weasel were patrolling the streets when we heard noises coming from an alleyway. We decided to check it out, and saw a group of 12 civilians beating up Naruto-san. Weasel and Inu-senpai have transported those villagers to Ibiki-san, and reported to him, while I decided to bring Uzumaki-san to you. His injuries seem to be healing quite quickly, nothing more severe than a couple of bruises here and there. The Kyuubi chakra will probably heal him, so I decided to take him here instead of the hospital. The Hokage sighed once again. Why have you left me with this, Minato? Thank you, Nico. You are dismissed. Nico just bowed and shunshined away. Hiruzen looked at the unconscious Naruto with a sympathetic look. I'm sorry, Naruto. I wish I could do something for you. Naruto groggily opened a single eye and looked around, the light beaming through the window directly landing on his face. He slowly stirred up. Ugh. Where am I? He mumbled. Ah, Naruto-kun, my boy, you're awake now. It's good to see you again, Hiruzen said with a grandfatherly smile. Naruto just deadpanned. Another thing he wondered, why did some of the villagers call him a demon? As far as he was concerned, he's never so much as hurt a butterfly. He wanted to research it a bit, but he couldn't. The matrons at the orphanage would rarely ever let him read, and whenever he mentioned it to his Gigi, all he would do was ask him to describe the people who would call him that. How was he supposed to remember who would beat him? All he remembered were those hateful glares and vicious sneers, never the hair or eye color. Such matters were insignificant. Sometimes he would spy on the other kids at the orphanage when the matrons would interact with them. They were so gentle and kind to the other kids, but treated him like a stain on the ground, so why? He remembered glaring at one of the matrons when she smiled at a boy who was reading to her. But if you looked close enough at him, underneath the anger, you could see a glint of longing in the boy's eyes. He yearned to be patted on the head or complimented. He craved attention, due to his lack of it since an early age. Yuto, Ruto, Naruto. The boy blinked. Hee. Sorry about that, Gigi. I kinda spaced out again. He smiled sheepishly, rubbing the back of his head. His surrogate grandfather just smiled at him. Quite all right, my boy. I was wondering if you were hungry. At this, the boy's stomach rumbled, speaking for him. They both chuckled at this, nervously in Naruto's case, and teasingly in the Hokage's. Well, my boy, I guess your stomach speaks for you, huh? Yeah, I guess so. He nervously rubbed his head again. Well, let's go then. I have a feeling you'll like this place. Your mother did, after all. He replied, keeping that last part in his head. As they were walking to the ramen stand, Hiruzen tried to start a conversation. Well, Naruto, you start the academy next week? Are you excited? Hell yeah, Gigi. I'm gonna be one step closer to taking the hat from you. His grandfather just chuckled at this. I'm sure you will, Naruto-kun. A few of the villagers glared at Naruto, but with the Hokage with him, they did nothing to him. What the villagers didn't see was the cold, icy, calculative stare in Naruto's eyes for a split second, before he went back to his cheery facade. The god of shinobi, however, being a 3-time war veteran, did not fail to pick up on this, and it troubled him greatly. He really hoped Naruto didn't seek revenge on the village. He really couldn't blame Naruto if he did, but it would break his already fragile heart to have to label his grandson figure and his successor's legacy a missing nin or have to sign his death warrant. But the village came first anyways. They would cross that bridge when or if it came. Ah, here we are. Naruto was confused for a second before he smelled a godly aroma. His mouth was watering, and he was put in a trance-like state, just from the smell alone, before he quickly dashed off to the area the smell was coming. Wait up, Naruto. The Hokage chuckled at this. It turns out Hiruzen's theory was correct. Naruto inherited his mother's love for ramen. Well, hello there. An old, burly voice called out to the boy. He looked up, shocked because for once, someone other than the old man was actually speaking to him, without glaring or sneering at the boy. Hello. He replied meekly, and a few seconds later, another man with red and white robes and a white hat with the kanji for fire walked into the stand. Naruto, why did you run off like that? His grandfather lightly scolded him. Sorry, Gigi. It smelled really good, and I kinda just followed the smell, he replied sheepishly. Hiruzen sighed. Sometimes Naruto could really be a handful. Naruto, what should I do with you? Gigi shook his head while smiling slightly. You should buy me ramen, Naruto yelled out. Of course, Naruto. We'll have 2 miso ramens, Tuchi. Hiruzen told the man. Of course, Hokage-sama. The man bowed and scurried back to the kitchen. Naruto watched this with awe. He couldn't believe the respect people would give the old man. He wanted that kind of respect as well, which was originally one of the reasons he aimed for the Hokage position, to be acknowledged the same way his Gigi was, but he knew that being Hokage was more than just that. Sometime in his musings, a 10-year-old Ayam walked out of the kitchen and peeked her head out of the back. Her eyes widened as they landed on a tiny Naruto. When he noticed this, tilted his head to the side. Can I help you, miss? He said in a timid voice. Of course, this was too much for Ayam, and she immediately screamed kawaii and ran at him at speeds that would make the yellow flash jealous, and snagged him in her arms, between her developing bosoms, and squeezed him. His face was slowly turning blue as she wouldn't let go of him, and Hiruzen watched this with an amused expression. Ayam-chan, I believe young Naruto is having trouble breathing. He chuckled. Her eyes widened as she finally noticed the famous Hokage sitting on the stool next to Naruto. She eeped and hopped off Naruto as she fought off a mild blush. Sorry about that. My name's Ayam, and I'm the daughter of the man who owns this place, she said as she sheepishly rubbed the back of her head. in a fashion eerily similar to a certain blue-eyed blonde. "Hi, my name's Naruto Uzumaki," the once shy boasted. "Naruto? You were named after a ramen topping." Naruto playfully glared at her for this. "Nah, I think my name means maelstrom. It's way cooler than a ramen topping." Ayam giggled into her palm at this. "Two miso ramens," the familiar burly voice called out, as the man now known as Tucci placed 2 bowls of ramen on the table. The smell was crispy and savory, and the meal looked mouth-watering. After a call of itadikamasu, the two dug into their meals, Hiruzen with elegance, and Naruto scarfing down the meal like someone who hasn't eaten a good meal before, which he probably hasn't. "Wow, it's amazing," Naruto called out. Tucci beamed at the praise, and Ayam jabbed a finger at her chest. "Well, of course. We are the best ramen vendors in Fire Country after all." Hiruzen chuckled, as he still had half his ramen left in his bowl. "Well, Naruto, feel any B-dash," he paused as his eyes, along with Tucci and Ayam's, nearly bugged out their sockets, and their jaws unhinged. At the end of the seats sat Naruto, rubbing his stomach, with a completely empty bowl. Nothing inside. No soup, toppings, or even a remaining noodle. He burped and sheepishly rubbed his neck. "Phew, that was good," he yelped. Everyone just deadpanned at this. Here, a 6-year-old boy finished a large bowl of miso ramen, filled to the brim, in 32 seconds, breaking Kushina Uzumaki's previous record of 37 seconds. "Well, ahem, if that's all, I will see you next time, Naruto-kun." "Yeah, see you next time, old man. I am Chan Tucci join," he yelled as he ran back into his apartment. What no one noticed was as soon as Naruto's door closed, it dropped off all emotion. His face turned into a half-frown, and his eyes steely cold, as he remembered yesterday's events, especially since it was the Kyuubi festival, and his birthday, surprisingly the day he was glared at and beaten the most. Wait, he froze mid-step, his eyes as wide as saucers, and his face completely shocked. His heartbeat quickened, and he frantically started thinking. What people didn't realize was that Naruto was one of the most analytical people ever, with an IQ of over 140. At the age of 6, he calmed himself and fell into a meditative state. And soon enough, he felt a tug in the back of his mind. Drip, drip, drip. Naruto's eyes snapped open as he looked around and saw a gigantic sewer that seemed to go on forever. He already theorized that this place was either his mind or gut. He kept walking forward until he saw a gigantic cage. He looked up and saw nothing but darkness until one eye opened, and surely enough, he saw a slitted, bloodshot red eye. It seems my jailer decided to grace me with his presence." A deep, booming voice mocked, as he opened his other eye and walked forward, baring his glinting sharp teeth. "Hello, Kyuubi. What do you want, Ningen? Is the chakra flowing through your puny veins not enough? Have you come to mock me, or forcefully steal my chakra?" The voice mocked once again Naruto. For his credit, didn't even cower, nor flinch. He just chuckled, which angered the fox. "Answer me, human." The voice boomed, and the area was laced with killing intent. However, Naruto seemed immune to it. "Well, in that case," Naruto said as he sat down, in a meditative position, one that made the fox's eyes widen in complete, utter shock, as this position was one he hadn't seen in thousands of years. It was the exact same position the Sage of Six Paths would sit in. "I don't want to steal your chakra, nor do I want to mock you, as I didn't choose to have you sealed inside me. I wish to understand you," Naruto replied, which had the Kyuubi raise an eyebrow. Whatever it was expecting, this wasn't it. Without waiting for the fox to respond, he continued. "The stories I've heard, and the few books I've read have told me that you are a being made up of all the hatred in the world. But that is impractical and illogical. It's pretty obvious to me that the reason you hate humans is because we treat you like mindless beasts and weapons, and our kind sealing you guys into us probably angered you as well," he replied. "But, seeing as how if one of us dies, so does the other, we should probably become friends, or at the very least, comrades, so let's redo this." My name is Naruto Uzumaki, he said with a serene smile. For a split second, the Kyuubi swore it saw a visage of the Sage of Six Paths behind Naruto, in the same position as him. Could this boy be the one you talked about, Tusan? Perhaps I'll put my trust in the Ninjen race. One more time. The fox smirked, not a smug smirk, or an evil smirk, a friendly smirk. Kurama. My name is Kurama, Naruto. I will put my faith in the human race one more time. Do not disappoint me, brat, the fox said as he fist-bumped Naruto. I promise, you won't regret this, Kurama, Naruto said before he grinned, and phased out of his seal, smiling a real smile once, before falling into blissful sleep. Time skip. Currently, Naruto was hinged into a man with shaggy brown hair and green eyes. This was his common henge. He was in a store, looking to buy some new clothes with his stipend. Hey kid, Kurama speaks up. Naruto replies. You might be angry with what I say, but I think you should pretend to be a complete idiot during the academy. Naruto, not one to rush to conclusions, knew Kurama would have a good reason for requesting such a thing. And why do you say that, Kurama? Well, for one, I believe deception would be wise, so you should buy some ugly-looking clothes, preferably bright. Another logical reason would be to keep your head down, you know how the council thinks about you. If they noticed the demon brat was getting strong, it would possibly mean more attempts on your life, and more requests to have you killed by the civilian council, which would be annoying and give your village leader a headache. Naruto sighed at this. As much as he loathed to admit it, Kurama raised good points, and overall that had more pros than cons, alright, but only until the final year graduation day I go all out. Hi, the fox agreed. Naruto left the store with 5 pairs of a bright orange jumpsuit. The next morning, Naruto walked into the classroom with a slight physical henge, rendering him shorter and giving him more face fat. He walked through the door with spiky blonde hair, cerulean blue eyes, a bright blue and orange jumpsuit, and green goggles on his forehead. Yo, my name is Naruto Uzumaki, and I'm gonna be Hokage Tabeo, Naruto screeched out. He practically cringed at himself and heard the furball snicker inside him. He briefly wondered if Kurama actually gave him this idea for his own amusement, before he heard someone scoff and retort, yeah right, like an idiot as you could ever become Hokage. A couple of snickers rang across the room. Naruto's eyes narrowed and went ice cold for a second before he replied, Hell yeah I will, just you wait. It seemed no one noticed his facade slip up. Except for 2 pairs of eyeballs. One sitting in the Hokage's office watching through a crystal ball, and the other pair belonging to a certain lazy Nara. It was going to be for years. 4 years later, Naruto, age 12. A young boy was seen running and laughing through the village in a bright orange jumpsuit. He had a paintbrush in one hand and a bucket in the other. This said boy recently painted the Hokage monument entirely. He had a couple of Chunin hot on his tail. Meanwhile, on the other side of the village, Hokage-sama, Naruto Uzumaki has pranked the village again. Hiruzen sighed. What did he do this time? He painted the Hokage monument, Hokage-sama. Hiruzen sighed again, for what seemed like the 1000th time that day. He looked out the window and had to stifle a chuckle at what he saw. He saw the 3 Kages, Shodame, Nidame and Sandame with face paint everywhere, and blood trickling down their noses. However, what he saw next nearly gave him a severe heart attack. For the Yandame Hokage, he had his hair painted golden blonde, his pupils were cerulean blue, and he had 3 whisker marks on each cheek. Then, a split second later, he thought he actually did get a heart attack. The man choked on his tobacco and nearly fainted when he noticed next to the Yandame Hokage was a feminine round-structured face, a woman with a heart-shaped face, long, straight, red-painted hair, and a green hair clip on her right braid. Next to the Yandame's face was the face of one Kushina Uzumaki. Hiruzen started sweating at this. There was no way Naruto didn't know about his heritage after this. Would Naruto be angry? How long has Naruto known? After this, surely some people like Hayashi Hyuga, Mikoto Uchiha, Tsumin Izuka, and a few of Minato and Kushina's friends would put two and two together. This spelled trouble. Hiruzen knew Naruto was smarter than he let on, but he didn't know Naruto knew of his heritage already. Does this mean he already knew of his tenant? Sama. Hokage-sama. Ha! Hiruzen blinked. Are you alright, Hokage-sama? You spaced out. Yes, I'm fine. Just capture Naruto and have him scrub the paint off. At once, Hokage-sama. The man bowed and left the room, leaving a troubled and confused Hiruzen. Meanwhile, back in the academy, the students were laughing at one Naruto Uzumaki, tied up at the center of the classroom. Naruto, why were you pulling pranks again? Humph. Because this class is boring. It's utterly useless. Most of the facts are either vague or misinterpreted, and I know more than the majority of historic combined. Having 1,000-year-old fox sealed in your gut does its wonders. Naruto said, keeping the last part to himself, however. Well, in that case, class, we're all going to redo the henge today. Everyone just groaned at this. This is all your fault, Naruto Baka, screeched Ino Yamanaka. Yeah, Naruto. Why do you have to be so troublesome all the time? Shikamaru said. Naruto just hemphed indignantly and turned his head the other way. Sakura Haruno. A pink-haired girl put her hands in the rat hand seal, and after one cry of Henge no Jutsu, she transformed into Irika, but a few inches shorter. Nice. A little too short, but practice makes perfect. Cha, did you see that, Kiba-kun? Asked Sakura. Kiba just grinned at her and raised a thumbs up, making her squeal and blush. I think it was awesome, Sakura-chan, yelled Naruto. Sakura scowled as she noticed the orange-clad boy. Shut up, Naruto Baka, Sakura yelled as she punched Naruto on the head, making Naruto yelp in pain. Sorry, Sakura-chan. Geez, does she have to punch me every time? What a coward. I try to make her feel better about herself and she abuses me. Next, Satsuki Uchiha. Satsuki just walked up. Naruto had to admit she was definitely attractive, with a long black ponytail going down to her hip and bangs covering her forehead, along with a cute heart-shaped face and a black top, leaving her shoulders uncovered, with matching black ANBU-style pants. She was quite the beauty. About 90% of the boys in the class, including Naruto and Kiba, cheered for Satsuki. Satsuki, without even saying a word, just a half-rat seal managed to transform into Irika, almost perfectly. Amazing, Satsuki. You really live up to your name as a prodigy, just an inch shorter. And the kunai pouch is facing the wrong way, but extra points for doing it wordlessly, and with a half seal. Irika praised, which Satsuki just H&Ed, and smirked at. Of course, all the boys were cheering her, with a few of the girls happy for her, but most glaring at her out of jealousy, due to Kiba cheering her on the loudest next to Naruto, but it wasn't like she cared about anyone. The class was way too easy for her. Next up, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto walked up to the class, receiving more than a few glares. A couple were even sneering at him. Naruto, however, decided to play another prank and yelled Oiroke no Jutsu. Once the smoke dissipated, a few boys fainted, and a few passed out from nosebleeds. A couple of the girls were red in the face from either jealousy or anger. There, standing in the smoke, was a beautiful, naked figurine, with curves all over the body and wisps of smoke covering the intimate areas. Irika shot back with a nosebleed and immediately smacked Naruto across the head. Naruto, what was that, you idiot? Naruto, for his part, just smirked triumphantly at Irika. That, Irika-sensei, was my very own Oiroke no Jutsu. It can be turned into an A-rank jutsu, or for kunoichis, the reverse Oiroke no Jutsu. It's the same thing as the Oiroke no Jutsu, except instead of a curvy girl, it's a hunky guy. It serves multiple purposes, including seduction missions, or temporarily stunning an opponent in battle. Irika, along with half the class, actually had to blink at the rather thoughtful explanation. Irika would have been rather impressed had the jutsu not basically been offensive to the female gender, or at least that was what Irika said in his head. Yeah, whatever. Class is dismissed for today. Remember kids, tomorrow is the graduation exam, Irika said, specifically looking at Naruto. Most of the kids were chattering excitedly, and once the bell rang, everyone left. Ah, tomorrow's the big day, Kurama? Naruto said to his partner and basically father/older brother figure. Yup, that's right brat. I can't wait to see the reactions on those kids' faces, Kurama replied as he smirked. Unfortunately for Naruto, he wasn't able to train using Kurama's chakra. He can't activate Kurama's chakra without alerting practically every sensor, Jonin, Anbu, and the Hokage in the village. Kurama explained to Naruto how merging their chakra would work, for Naruto to become a pure Jinchuriki, the golden chakra mode in Shippuden, but he needed the key to the seal so the cage would open. Kurama told Naruto that he believed one of the toads currently holds the key to the seal, so more than likely, Jiraiya had the key. Hey, Kurama, can you take me to my parents' house? I can turn invisible now, and I want to learn the Hiraishin. I already learned the chakra theory. I'm a level 8 Fuinjutsu users, and I know the theory behind the jutsu. I think I can start the practical use of the jutsu now. Sure brat, turn invisible, and I'll give you the directions. Alright, my Segekure no Jutsu, Naruto whispered quietly. Instantly, the chakra bent the light fractions around Naruto so that he turned invisible to the naked eye. Kurama started giving Naruto instructions on how to get to the house. As he expected of his parents, it was a small, humble home. 2 stories, 4 bedrooms, and 3 bathrooms. He had to smear some blood on the doorknob, due to there being a blood seal on the knob, which immediately let him in after a series of clicks. Naruto had to restrain some tears when he saw pictures of his parents. He started walking around the house, and when he came in front a certain room, he fell to his knees and started sobbing quietly. In front of him was a small room labeled Naruchan's room. It was painted orange, with toys all around the room, and a cozy, tiny crib. This could have been all his, but because of a certain masked idiot, he was forced to grow up in a cold, cemented orphanage floor. Kurama was oddly quiet inside the cage, the entire time. After Naruto got a hold of himself, he started walking around again, this time searching for his father's weapons. Kit, Kurama started in an oddly solemn voice, considering his usual teasing tone. Check the basement. There might be something there. It was the off-limits room that your mother never entered, so there might be something there. Naruto simply nodded, and down to the basement. After smearing some blood on the knob, the door opened and what he saw took his breath away. Inside the room were multiple kunai with the Hiraishin formula on the handle and 3 prongs instead of the usual one. There were multiple swords, nodachis, katanas, and even a zanbato, which he believed were his mother's. After all, his mother was the Red Death, the one who single-handedly defeated all 7 ninja swordsmen of the mist. Naruto also noticed scrolls for kenjutsu katas, which he would try out later. He sealed one katana that had a vantablack handle and a pure white handle with a blood-red line going down. This blade also had an extremely thin aura around it. It was called the Seishin Ekisu, Soul Extractor, and it was said to have once belonged to the Shinigami himself. Naruto sealed the Seishin Ekisu and around 110 of the tri-pronged kunais in the sealing scroll, deciding to keep the rest in here, pocketing the scroll, along with another whisper of my Segekure no Jutsu. He bolted out of his father's home and went back to his apartment. Tomorrow would surely be an interesting day, that much he was sure of. The next morning Naruto woke up, he immediately removed his henge. He ate his breakfast, consisting of white rice, miso soup, and fresh vegetables. He got dressed and looked at himself in the mirror. Standing in front of him wasn't the orange-clad blonde idiot with a shit-eating grin. No, standing in front of him was a 5 feet 5 inches teenager with a lean build, not overly muscular but not scrawny, a nice build. He had spiky, shaggy, blonde hair, with 2 bandaged bangs on either side of his head, and purple liner underneath his eyes. He wore black robes, with a high collar and white outlines. He had 5 magatamas stitched around the collar, and the top of his chest showing, along with a single earring, in the shape of a tomo, along with piercing blue eyes, a calm but stern expression on his face. instead of a scrawny adolescent aura. His body radiated a powerful, but serene aura. His outfit matched with his black boots, not a shred of face fat, and a sharp jawline. Picture Indra Otsutsuki, but with blue eyes and blonde hair and the black and white reversed on his outfit. All in all, he looked like a powerful shinobi. Kurama whistled inside his head. Looking good for a human, Naruto, instead of a sheepish head rub or a nervous chuckle/blush. He just nodded, keeping the stoic expression and the cold glint in his eyes. Naruto Uzumaki was dead, and Naruto Namikaze was born this day. Still having an hour left, he shunshined in front of the academy, with a book called Advanced Space-Time Theories and Level 10 Fuinjutsu in his hand. He walked into the classroom and immediately sat at the very back of the classroom, burying his head in his book. Hiruzen Sarutobi caught himself mesmerized by Naruto's new outfit. Looks like your future girlfriend will have to chase the fangirls off with a stick, Naruto-kun, Hiruzen thought with a chuckle. One by one, the students started piling in. Naruto, while reading his book, also kept an eye on everyone walking in. Most of the kids were irrelevant, nameless civilians, but a couple were clan heirs. He noticed a few people giving him strange expressions or raised eyebrows, but eventually shrugging it off, figuring the academy instructor would probably explain it, but most people just didn't notice him. Finally, his ears twitched as he heard a familiar screeching, along with stomping. Eventually, two girls, one a pinky and the other a platinum blondie, entered the room. Ha! I came in first. I know, pig. Beat it. Forehead. My big toe was in front of yours. He had to suppress a sweat drop at this. I'm sitting next to Kiba Kayuen. No, I am forehead. Eventually, Naruto had enough. He put his book down and cleared his throat. When he noticed he had practically the entire class's attention, he just offered, "Why don't you both take one of Kiba's side?" The two girls just stared at him strangely, with a tiny blush before Sakura had a shocked expression, and Naruto baka. This shocked the entire class, before Naruto just titled his head to the side and narrowed his eyes at the entire class at once, before stuffing his face in the book once again. Sakura just snorted at this. Ha! There's no way that Hadi was Naruto baka. He can't go 5 seconds without asking me out on a date. And what is he reading? Advanced Space-Time Theories? Naruto could barely spell chakra right last week. The class laughed at this, before Naruto, without even lifting his head, just mustered the coldest tone possible, and said in an eerily calm tone, "Appearances can be quite deceiving, Haruno." Everyone flinched at his tone. Even Satsuki had to suppress shivers. After gauging everyone's reactions, Naruto mentally thanked Kurama for the lessons on intimidation. Before anyone could get a word in, Irika walked in the room with Mizuki beside him. "All right, class, settle down." And everyone fell back into their seats. "Today we will begin the graduation test, so after attendance, everyone come outside, and we'll start with weapon throwing." Irika went through the names of multiple kids, finally landing on Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto looked up. "Here." He lazily lifted a hand. "Naruto baka, stop acting cool like Kiba Kayuen," a certain pink-haired girl shouted. "Such petty words mean nothing to me," Naruto replied, without even looking away from his book, once again shocking the entire class, Irika and Mizuki included. After Irika snapped from his stupor, he walked out and told others to follow him. Everyone followed Irika and Mizuki outside, and one by one the kids threw kunai and shuriken at the targets, and hit a few until Satsuki was called, where she flicked them and they hit all 10 bullseye except one. She smirked when everyone cheered, seemingly in Naruto's direction, but grit her teeth when she saw he wasn't even paying attention. Wait, why did she care about the opinion of the dead last? Whatever. She shook herself from her thoughts and walked back to the class. "You were awesome, Satsuki-chan," Kiba yelled, and a lot of fanboys nodded vigorously, but she noticed Naruto didn't even look up from his book, which made her kind of angry. Finally, Irika called on Naruto, and Satsuki had a smug smirk on her face, wanting to see Naruto fail after ignoring her. Her fantasy didn't last long, however. When Naruto put his book down, and flicked all 10 shurikens lazily, and landed them. Everyone's jaw dropped at this except Hiruzen, who had spied on Naruto practicing in the Forest of Death before. Besides, he'd seen better than that before. Orochimaru, Naidame-sama, and Itachi Uchiha were all much better at Naruto's age than he was. Not that he was belittling Naruto or anything. Just how strong are you, Naruto? Iruka thought. Well, that was unexpected. Good job, Naruto. After that, they took turns sparring Mizuki, and Naruto had Mizuki pinned in under 3 seconds. Afterwards, they all performed the 3 jutsus with Naruto producing solid clones, but no one needed to know that. Naruto walked home that day with a black headband. Satsuki, Itachi, and Makoto were eating a quiet dinner when Itachi noticed Satsuki was barely eating her tomatoes. Is something troubling you, Imuto-chan? Itachi asked Satsuki. She looked up at him and absently noticed her mother was also listening in on the conversation. Oh, nothing really. It's just something strange happened today, during graduation exams. Oh? And what happened? You know that loudmouth dead-last kid in my class, Naruto? The one who screams about becoming Hokage and always pulls pranks. Makoto narrowed her eyes. She had suspicions that Naruto was the son of Kushina and Minato, despite Hiruzen telling her that Kushina died with her unborn son the night of the Kyuubi attack. Before Itachi nodded, telling her to go on. Well, today, at the beginning of class, Naruto arrived early today, unlike basically every other day, and he actually looked kinda handsome, she said, blushing a bit at the end. Before giving a chance for either of them to tease her, she continued. But the strange thing was, he was wearing a black cloak, instead of his ugly orange jumpsuit, and he didn't ask me or Sakura on a date today once. The weirdest part was, he was reading a book called Advanced Space-Time Theories and Level 10 Fuinjutsu. I mean, I don't think even half the jonins know Fuinjutsu, and then the class dobe pops in with it. At this, Makoto and Itachi's eyes widened in shock, not knowing someone so young could know about sealing arts. A level 10 no less. It also confirmed Makoto that Naruto was indeed Kushina's son. And then, Naruto breezed through all 3 parts of the exam like it was nothing. He even beat my score. At this point, both Satsuki's relatives knew he was putting up a facade. No way someone could learn that much in a single week. If I didn't know better, I'd think you had a crush on him, Satsu-chan, Makoto teased, and laughed gently when Satsuki turned beet red. Ka-san, I'd like to invite him to lunch tomorrow and ask him a couple of questions tomorrow. Makoto raised an eyebrow, and Satsuki looked shocked. All right, Itachi, you can invite him tomorrow for lunch. Itachi nodded at this, and Satsuki went back to eating her tomatoes. This week has been a crazy one. One Naruto Namikaze, publicly known as Naruto Uzumaki, mused. Quite a few things happened, including a few rather unexpected ones. He was thinking over the events of the week as he did his morning rituals. Flashback, 6 days ago. Naruto was practicing his taijutsu katas. He sensed Satsuki and Itachi spying on him earlier, but he decided to humor them for a bit, so he acted as if he didn't notice anything. He did notice one thing: Satsuki was masking around 65% of her chakra signature, which was usual for a genin, but Itachi was only masking around 80% of his signature. He knew as an ANBU, Itachi was supposed to be able to mask at least 85% of his chakra, so more than likely Itachi was testing him to see if he would realize it or not. Naruto finally had enough of it, so he flicked his wrist and immediately snickered as he heard a KYAA come from the tree as he threw 2 shuriken, one in front of Satsuki and one in front of Itachi. Itachi noticed it coming way before it hit, so he jumped out of the tree and landed gracefully on his feet. Meanwhile, Satsuki wasn't so lucky, and she fell to the ground with a thud. Both Itachi and Naruto chuckled at her, as Itachi already knew Naruto had spotted them if the occasional glances towards him and his sister meant anything. She glared at Naruto, who was whistling innocently, and marched up to him with a huff and crossed her arms. What the fuck was that for, dobe? Naruto raised an eyebrow. Oh? I didn't notice there were 2 people spying on me. I was just practicing my shuriken throwing. Satsuki blushed when he said that and looked away. Whatever, it was my Nii-san's idea anyways. She mumbled. Naruto turned to Itachi, who was watching all of this with an amused expression. He looked at him as if saying, well, Itachi, catching this expression, continued. Hello Naruto-kun. I was merely watching you train, but I had no idea my Imuto-chan was following me. Satsuki blushed even harder at this. Chuckling, Itachi continued, I was wondering if you wanted to come over to eat dinner with us this lovely afternoon? Itachi half-asked / half-stated. Naruto raised an eyebrow. May I ask why? He questioned. Itachi shrugged. Well, it would be interesting having someone that can pull off such high-level pranks and can maintain a facade for 4 years eat with us. Itachi elaborated. Naruto smirked at that. Even Satsuki was quite impressed. Acting like an idiot for such a long time when you're really not can damage your dignity, and it would be really annoying. She probably wouldn't be able to do such a thing. After all, who could? Somewhere deep in a hidden cave in Amigakure, a man wearing an orange mask with black swirls sneezed. Naruto thought over this. Obviously, Itachi had some ulterior motive from this. Maybe Mikoto knew of his heritage and asked Itachi to ask for her? Well, he really had nothing to lose. Besides, when you only have a grumpy old furball to talk to, it gets really lonely, Naruto mused, ignoring the indignant, oh Sure, Itachi-san. I don't see a problem with this. Well, I'll see you two in a couple of hours, I guess, Naruto said with a wave. Without waiting for either to reply, he vanished in a leaf shunshin. Satsuki blinked at this. Ni-san, when will you teach me how to do that? Satsuki whined. Itachi inwardly cursed at Naruto for this. He knew Satsuki would pesk him about this, and decided to be flashy anyways. Itachi sighed. He poked her forehead with 2 fingers. Later, Imuto-chan. Now, let's go back before Kasen scolds us. He replied and began tree-hopping back. Satsuki puffed her cheeks and shook her head, and followed her brother. Naruto arrived at the Uchiha district with his regular cloak, his dirty blonde hair still messy, the purple eyeliner underneath his eyes still there, and a bored expression engraved on his face. He knocked at the Uchiha clan head's doors, and not a minute later, Mikoto answered the door. When she noticed Naruto, she had to fight off a mild blush on her face. It's not like you could blame her, could you? It's been 6 to 7 years since her husband's died, and with no Kushina to call her a cradle robber, there was nothing to stop her, he thought evilly. She was broken out of her musings when she noticed Naruto talking. Uchiha-san? He asked. Mikoto shook herself out of her thoughts. It's fine, Naruto, call me Mikoto, please. She replied with a motherly smile and motioned him to come in. You have a nice home, Mikoto-san, Naruto complimented. Thank you, Naruto. We were just about to eat. Why don't you sit down? Mikoto offered him. Thank you, Mikoto-san, Naruto replied, with a gentle smile on his face, which would make most girls swoon over him. As he walked in, he noticed Itachi and Satsuki both at the table, sitting already. Satsuki looked at him and nodded, to which he nodded back, and after exchanging greetings with Itachi, he sat down. After Mikoto put the food on the table, and a chorus of Itade Kamasu, they dug in. Your food tastes amazing, Mikoto-san, but I have to say it's a lot better eating with others, he said with a soft smile. They frowned at this, realizing how lonely it must be to have lived alone since the age of 6. Don't worry, Naruto. You can come here to eat any time you'd like, Mikoto told him. Itachi started some small talk. So, Naruto, I hear you graduated as Rookie of the Year, Naruto shrugged. As you said earlier, I put a facade the past 4 years. I should graduate as Rookie of the Year, but I wouldn't be surprised if the instructors sabotaged me. Naruto replied. Satsuki raised an eyebrow. Why would the instructors sabotage Naruto? She knew his pranks were annoying, but surely sabotaging him would be taking it too far? Both Mikoto and Itachi frowned. They, unlike Satsuki, knew why Naruto was treated this way and shook their heads at the stupidity of most of the citizens. Oh, that's right. Satsuki doesn't know. Does she? Naruto questioned. Know what? Satsuki asked suspiciously. Before either Makoto or Itachi could intervene, Naruto replied, the Kyuubi is one of the 9 bijus. There's the one-tailed raccoon, the two-tailed cat, the three-tailed turtle, the four-tailed monkey, the five-tailed horse, the six-tailed slug, the seven-tailed beetle, the eight-tailed ox, and the nine-tailed kitsune. Itachi was slightly impressed with Naruto's knowledge of the bijus. He deduced that if Naruto knew this, he must have a relationship with the fox. What most people don't know is that a biju is a creature made out of chakra, with a soul in it, so technically a tailed beast cannot be killed. Instead, the Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi inside of me, and people believe that I am the reincarnation of the Kyuubi. Naruto said with a scoff at the end. Satsuki was shocked and angry at this. She now knew why people would glare at him so hatefully, but did they really not trust the Sandaime's word? Or the Yondaime's Fuinjutsu skill? Naruto continued, without waiting for a response. The Yondaime would have sealed it in himself, but it has to be sealed inside of someone young because the chakra coils would fry if an already developed system were to merge with demonic chakra, and the Yondaime was too noble of a man, so he wouldn't have sealed the Kyuubi in a random orphan. After all, who better to trust with such a burden than your own son? He stated carelessly. Whether Satsuki would hate him or kiss up to him, or react indifferently wasn't his problem. All three widened their eyes when he said this. Itachi already knew this, Makoto suspected it, and Satsuki had no idea. However, my Jinchuriki status is an S-ranked secret, and as for my heritage, not even the Hokage knows I know this. All evidence tracing back to my father, Minato Namikaze, and my mother, Kushina Uzumaki, the Red Death, has been erased or redacted, except for one file, locked in a top-secret vault in the Hokage's office, which he'll use to prove my heritage when the time comes. And how do you know this, Naruto? Makoto asked with a raised eyebrow. Naruto shrugged. It's not hard to notice. I read Kushina Uzumaki's file. It said she was in a relationship with the fourth. I was born the same day she died. She was the previous host of the Nine Tails. I have the same blonde hair and blue eyes as the fourth. Isn't it a logical conclusion that they are my parents? Naruto asked with a deadpan. Itachi's sweat dropped. Makoto sheepishly nodded, and Satsuki was still too shocked to say anything. Perceptive of you, Naruto-kun, Itachi commented. Naruto merely shrugged. It wasn't hard to notice if you weren't so biased against him, which most of the village was. Well, I'm gonna go now. Thank you for the invitation, Itachi, and thank you for the meal, Makoto-san. Well, I'll see you next week, Satsuki, Naruto said, and left the house with a shunshin. Flashback end. Another flashback, 2 days earlier. Naruto was sitting on top of the Yondaime's head, on the Hokage monument, with his legs dangling over the edge, watching over the village, when suddenly he sensed a presence behind him. He threw a kunai behind him, in speeds that would make most Chunin envious, and when he looked behind him, he saw an old man with black spiky hair, an X-shaped scar on his chin, a bandaged left eye and arm, and a cane. Naruto narrowed his eyes. The man seemed familiar, but he couldn't put his finger on where he'd seen the man before. The man suddenly disappeared, and Naruto's danger senses screamed at him to move. At the last second, he narrowly dodged a whack from the man's cane, and barely dodged another vicious kick to the stomach. Damn, this old dude is good. He must be a veteran shinobi, Naruto mused, as he exchanged blows and dodges with the mysterious man. Just as Naruto thought he was about to gain an edge over the man, he threw his cane in the air, and in high Jonin level, bordering Kaga level speeds, he hit Naruto in the chin with a roundhouse kick and shunshin behind Naruto, and pinned him to the ground, arms behind his back, and his right leg on Naruto's back. Very good for your age and rank, Rookie Genin. I'd give you a low Chunin rank, mid Chunin tops. The man stated calmly. Who are you? I can tell you're a veteran shinobi, and judging by your lack of a Konoha Hitai 8, I can rightfully deem you a threat, Naruto stated with a cold tone. He was sweating on the inside, however. Who is this guy? He's so strong, but he has to be at least the age of the Sandaime weight. He must be Danzo Shimura, the Warhawk. a student of the Naidame Hokage, and Gigi's old rival. That's why he's so strong. Danzo chuckled a mirthless chuckle at this. Boy, you may be good for your age, but you're years too young to even hold a candle to me, which is what I wanted to talk to you about, he stated. Naruto narrowed his eyes. He knew of Danzo's route ANBU and his militaristic ideals. My name is Danzo Shimura, and I protect Konoha from the dark. I am one of Naidame's students and an old teammate of Hiruzen Sarutobi's. I can train you if you'd like. With my help, I can make you a force to be reckoned with. I can already tell you have potential so high that you can surpass the likes of Madara Uchiha, Naidame Hokage, and your father. Danzo noticed Naruto's eyes widen and smirked a little. Naruto knew if Danzo knew of Naruto's heritage, he obviously knew of Naruto's Jinchuriki status. He deduced that Danzo wanted to mold Naruto into an emotionless tool under his command, and would obviously decline, but he decided he would humor the man. I'll think about this, Naruto said calmly. Danzo turned around with a rare tiny grin on his face, thinking he'd won. Soon, Konoha'll be under my rule. Just you wait, Hiruzen. I'll take good care of the tree that is Konohagakure. Flashback end. Naruto was getting changed into his clothes right now, getting ready to head to the academy for team assignments. After getting changed, brushing his teeth, and a bowl of rice, he shunshined to the academy. ***, morning, brat. Today's the day you get your sensei. Correct. Kurama questioned Naruto as he stretched inside Naruto's cage. Morning, Kurama. Yeah, today's the day I get assigned to a Jonin cell. I wonder who I'll have on my team. Soon enough, Naruto arrived in front of the door. He sensed multiple chakra signatures inside the classroom, so he thought he'd entertain his class a bit. He opened the door, grabbed the ledge of the door top, and using chakra manipulation swung onto the ceiling of the class, walked over to his desk and sat down. Gaining stunned and awed looks from the students, even Irika had an impressed look on his face. Back in the Hokage's office, the Jonin senseis and the Hokage were gathered and peering into the Hokage's crystal ball. Needless to say, Hiruzen was sporting a huge grin on his face, and the Jonins were stunned, while Kakashi had an eyebrow raised. Using chakra manipulation to stick onto surfaces? Asuma Sarutobi, the son of Hiruzen Sarutobi, questioned. But that's a Chunin-level technique, replied Genma Shiranui, one of the few shinobi who had nothing personal against Naruto. But isn't the Uzumaki boy the dead last of his class? Asked a baffled Kurenai Yuhi, the girlfriend of Asuma Sarutobi, and a recently promoted Jonin of Konoha, also the Genjutsu mistress of Konoha, only bettered in the art of Genjutsu by Itachi Uchiha. Well, appearances can be quite deceiving, huh? Said Kakashi Hitaki, the copycat ninja, prize student of the fourth, with his trademarked eye smile, but inwardly he was just as confused. I had no idea Minato-sensei's son was this good. Chunin-level chakra control at the age of 13, and putting up a facade. Sensei, your son is just as much of a prodigy as you were. Back in the academy, Naruto was sitting in his desk, waiting for assignments, and noticed everyone staring at him. What? He snapped, shocking everyone out of their stupors. When did Naruto Baka get this cool? Thought a certain pink-haired girl, with a red dress and a red hitayate. Cha, that idiot is probably just acting cool to make Kibakuin look bad. And make me fall for him. Well, it ain't working, Naruto Baka, yelled her inner consciousness. Naruto Baka, stop acting cool, screeched Sakura. Naruto just glared at her, making her shrink back down. Keep your comments to yourself, Haruno, Naruto said in a cold tone, making her flinch and unknowingly making a certain mask-wearing gray-haired Jonin frown. Irika faked a cough to get the attention of the class. Well, now that Naruto is here, I'll start with the teams. Team 1, Shigeru Yuzuki, Nami Ito, Oboro Suzuki. Your sensei is Genma Shiranui. Irika droned on. Naruto stopped paying attention and began playing with his kunai absently. Team 7, Naruto Uzumaki. Naruto perked up when he heard his name. Sakura Haruno. Sakura groaned when she heard this. Naruto just sighed and crossed his arms. It could have been absolutely anyone, and I just had to get the screecher? It was only his training of keeping his emotions in check, and Kurama consoling him, saying something about killing her on a mission and pretending it was a bandit, making him inwardly sweat drop, that stopped him from cursing the gods out loud. And Satsuki Uchiha, your Jonin sensei is Kakashi Hatake. Naruto sighed again. The screecher with no skills and the stubborn girl who had a superior complex. Did Kami hate him or something? 2 hours have passed, and they're the only ones left. Ah, where is our sensei? Sakura Haruno screeched for the 100th time. Even Satsuki was starting to get a little impatient. Naruto just sat down, his head on his palm, staring lazily at the door. Satsuki was sitting in her chair, seeming calm, but you could tell by her knuckles tightening, and her legs shaking that she was also getting quite irritated. A minute later, the door opens and a man with silver spiky hair, a face mask, and a Hittite covering his left eye walks in. Not a second after he walks in, a kunai whizzes past him at low jonin speeds. Only with his years of experience as a jonin and ex-anbu was he able to dodge it. He narrowed his eyes to guess to did it, but didn't need to as he noticed Naruto with an indifferent expression on his face, but a closer look and you could see a tiny smirk on his face. Sakura and Satsuki both had eyes wide as dinner plates, jaws dropped. Naruto baka, why would you do that? Sakura yelled at him, preparing to bonk him on the head, but a little killing intent from Naruto made her freeze in her tracks. Calm down, Haruno. I only threw that at Chunin speeds. A Jonin should have been able to easily dodge it. If he dodged it, good for him. If he didn't, well, the shinobi standards have dropped, Naruto said, his smirk growing into a small grin at the end of his speech. Kakashi was shocked, but soon snapped out of his stupor. Well, first impression, you're all right. Meet me on the roof in 5 minutes. Kakashi ordered. Satsuki and Naruto shunshin to the roof, Naruto in less than 2 seconds, arriving a split second after Kakashi, and Satsuki took a little longer, due to her being new to the technique. It seems Itachi really did teach her the technique, Naruto thought with a small chuckle, while Sakura had to run to the rooftop. Kakashi raised an eyebrow. Not one, but 2 of his students knew the shunshin. It seemed Kami gifted him with 2 prodigies on his squad. But just because of this didn't mean he would neglect his 3rd student. He was shortly broken out of his musings when a huffing and sweating Sakura entered the vicinity. She widened her eyes the moment she saw Naruto leaning on a rail, hands in his pockets, eyes closed, and Satsuki opposite to him, lying on the ground with a bored expression on her face. How in Kami's name did Naruto baka and Satsuki both get here before me? Kakashi clapped his hands. Well, now that my students are here, why don't you introduce yourselves? He asked. How do we do that, sensei? Sakura questioned. Well, you know, likes, dislikes, hobbies, goals for the future. I'll start. My name's Kakashi Hatake. My likes and dislikes are none of your business. Hobbies, training. Goals for the future, don't have one. All 3 face faulted at this. Even Kurama sweat dropped. All we learned was his name, was the common thought. Pinky, you next. She glared at the nickname but went next anyways. My name is Sakura Haruno. I like Kiba-kun. She said with a squeal, I hate Naruto baka. She glanced at Naruto to see his reaction and huffed when she noticed his eyes closed, a bored look on his face, arms crossed. My hobbies are doing my hair, and my dreams for the future. Her face turned completely red at this. All right, you next, sunshine. He pointed at Satsuki. Satsuki Uchiha. I like tomatoes, dislike a lot of things, and my dream is to surpass my brother one day. Kakashi nodded and pointed at Naruto. Last, and maybe least, Blondie. Naruto cracked open one eye. You know me, I like my dislikes, and dislike my likes. Sakura just regarded this as Naruto spouting nonsense. Satsuki was confused at this, but Kakashi was very, very impressed. He knew it meant Naruto had guilty pleasures and admitted it, but at the same time disliked the fact that he had such things. Looks like I struck gold with this one, Kakashi mused. My hobbies are reading, since I have an eidetic memory, and my dream, I wish to unite the world. All three widened their eyes at this. Kakashi half expected Naruto to say something silly, like scream about becoming Hokage, or learn a bunch of cool jutsu, and Satsuki and Sakura were just downright surprised. Yes, I feel there's too much conflict in this world. Even though we don't live in a time of war, or during the warring clans era, it's still quite irritating, don't you think? Getting a knock at your door, opening it to find an ANBU or a chunin at the door only to find out that your dad or wife or your son died on a mission or in battle. The life of a shinobi is a curse. We are nothing more than simple mercenaries, who get sent out on missions and paid to perform said mission. There are no heroes in the shinobi world. Only fools believe in such a thing. Where there is a light, there is a darkness. Take the Yondaime Hokage for example. After he single-handedly annihilated the 1000 Iwanins and ended the war, we, Konoha, thought of him as a hero, right? But what about it from Iwa's point of view? Imagine yourself as a housewife doing the dishes one day, or as a child playing with your toys and you get a knock at your door. You open it to find a jonin, you recognize him as one of your husband/dad's friends, and he tells you that said man died in battle along with 900 plus other shinobi. How would you feel after such a thing? I wish to stop such things from happening. That's why my first task towards world peace will be to become the Hokage, he said with conviction in his voice and eyes. Kakashi's jaw was on the floor, lone eye the size of a dinner plate. Kami, such philosophies at such a young age. He already knows what it means to be a shinobi. What have you gone through, Naruto? Thought Kakashi. Naruto, thought Satsuki with concern. Sakura was nearly in tears by the end of the speech and was questioning her decision to become a shinobi in the first place. She became a shinobi to get closer to her Kibakuin, and because she thought ninjas were cool, spouting jutsu left and right and kicking ass and saving princesses, never once did she think an ounce as deep as Naruto did. Well, Kakashi clapped his hands. That was one hell of a speech, huh? Well, you three aren't genins just yet, Kakashi said ominously. Out of you 27 hopefuls, only 9 of you will become genin. Kakashi continued. Meet me here at 5 a.m. sharp, tomorrow morning, and by the way, don't eat breakfast unless you want to throw up. Jareni, Kakashi said as he left in a swirl of leaves. Well, I don't know about you two, but it would be stupid not to eat breakfast. He was probably testing us. See ya, Naruto said, as he also left in a shunshin, Satsuki vanishing a moment later, leaving Sakura to her thoughts. Currently, it was 6 a.m. and one Naruto Uzumaki was in his kitchen, making breakfast for himself. I know for sure Sakura didn't listen to me, but what about Satsuki? I think I'll bring 2 spare apples for those fools. Naruto stepped away from the frying pan for a second and took 2 apples out of a basket and sealed them in a storage seal. A couple of minutes later, we find Naruto eating his breakfast. I wonder what kind of test Sensei's gonna make us do? It might be a test consisting of bells your team has to work together to get. When I was inside your mother, I saw your father do this test to Kakashi Brat's team. Kurama replied. Good morning to you too, Kurama. I think I've heard of the bell test before. Didn't Gigi tell me a story about him giving the bell test to the Sannin? Well, from what I've heard about the bell test, the team needs to work together to get the bells, and the one who does the worst gets tied to a log. In Shika's words, how troublesome. Well, I'll go do my morning warm-up and reach the training ground around 7:40, 20 minutes before Kakashi arrives. An hour and a half later, at training ground 7, we see an irritated Satsuki trying to ignore an irate Sakura pacing around. Where are those two? Sensei told us to be here at 5 in the morning and ditch breakfast. It's nearly 8 and there's no sign of them anywhere. Sakura fumed. Calm down, Sakura. I'm annoyed too, but it's not like yelling is going to do anything. Satsuki replied sternly. Sakura just huffed in response. Whoosh! Both Sakura and Satsuki turned their heads so fast, a crack could be heard. to find Naruto in his usual attire with his hands in his pockets. "Yo," Naruto said calmly. "Naruto Baka, where have you been?" Sakura screeched but surprisingly made no move to bonk him. She must have learned her lesson, Naruto mused. "Is Sensei here?" Naruto asked as calmly as before. "No, Kakashi-sensei isn't here yet," Satsuki replied this time, in a gruffier-than-usual voice. "Then I'm not late," Naruto said with an obviously fake eye smile, making Satsuki sweat drop and Sakura get a tick mark, but the two could not deny his logic. "Did you two eat breakfast?" he asked. Both shook their heads. "Baka, did you forget what Kakashi-sensei said?" Sakura asked him with a snort. "Well, either way, it's dumb not to eat. You perform best when you eat a good meal," Naruto said before tossing Satsuki a scroll. "Channel some chakra into the scroll and toss one to Sakura," he continued. Satsuki raised an eyebrow but complied nonetheless. In a puff of smoke, 2 apples appeared in her hand. Satsuki gave him an appreciative glance and bit into one while tossing the other to Sakura, who looked worried. "Are you sure we can eat these, Naruto?" she asked in a hushed voice. "Nope. It's a leap of faith, Sakura. I don't know at all," he replied. Sakura scowled at him but ate the apple anyways. Kakashi mentally applauded Naruto from his hiding spot and chose this moment to appear. Whoosh! Kakashi appeared in a swirl of leaves, which made Sakura choke on her apple. Satsuki widened her eyes and Naruto raised an eyebrow. "Naruto, why'd you eat and give these two food?" Kakashi asked sternly, but inwardly he was jumping for joy. It seems Naruto would be a catalyst for a good team. Naruto shrugged. "These two fools blindly follow the rules instead of reading between the lines. You suggested for us not to eat, not ordered us. Besides, you said we weren't real genin yet, so either way you had no permission to order us. Either way, I wouldn't have listened to you," Naruto replied cheekily. Kakashi smiled. "Good job for reading between the lines. It looks like all the reports were wrong about you. You're a lot more observant than I thought," he said cheerily, before Sakura could try to bonk Naruto on the head for being a cheeky motherfucker. "Sensei, what's the survival test we're doing today?" Satsuki questioned, breaking Kakashi out of his musings. "I'm glad you asked, Satsuki," Kakashi said with his trademark eye smile, before pulling out 2 white bells with red strings, and dangled them. "You 3 will be trying to take these bells from me before noon," Kakashi said, while strapping the bells to his waist and setting up a timer, and placing it on top of a log. "But Sensei, there's only 2 bells," Sakura said/asked. "Very astute observation," Sakura Kakashi snarked, raising snickers from the other 2, and Sakura blush in embarrassment. "The one without a bell will be tied to the log, and will be eating our lunches in front of said person. This person will also be sent back to the academy," Kakashi said with his eye smile. All 3 widened their eyes at this. So that's his game, was the common thought. "Well, let's begin, you 3, Kakashi said. All 3 vanished from their positions. Kakashi, being an elite jonin, easily spotted all 3 of them, but they didn't need to know that. With Naruto was watching Kakashi stroll around from his hiding spot. "Before I devise a plan, I'm going to test Sensei's skills and try to see his weaknesses with a Kage Bunshin," he mused. Naruto created a shadow clone with a half-ram seal. A shadow clone shunshined into existence, rather than with a puff of smoke. The shadow clone rushed Kakashi from behind and immediately threw a heel kick at his chin, at speeds that made Kakashi pay attention. "I was hoping to read my Ikaraika, but it looks like I'll have to take him serious." Somewhat. Kakashi dodged the kick and retaliated with a swipe at his chest area. Naruto ducked the swipe and threw a left hook at Kakashi's jaw, which he knew Kakashi could dodge, so followed up with a kick to the ribs. Kakashi dodged the hook, having noticed it easily, but was thrown off by the kick. How unpredictable. This would be easier if I could use my Sharingan. But this is good for me anyways, Kakashi thought, stumbling a little, but backflipped twice, adding some distance and grace between the 2 of them. You're good for your age, but not good enough for me yet, Kakashi said while rushing Naruto at low Chunin speeds. The two of them exchanged blows, a left kick for a right heel spin kick, a dodged punch to the jaw, a kick to the cheek, and various more blows. Naruto was getting tired of this back and forth, so did something a little flashy. He was going at high genin speeds, but when Kakashi was in his flow, and his guard was still a little down, Naruto accelerated to high Chunin speeds, catching Kakashi off guard big time. He hit Kakashi with a punch to the stomach, followed by a reverse kick to the chin, and dashed to a stumbling Kakashi. He did a handstand and started attacking Kakashi with his legs, a kick to his jaw, followed by a jab at his chest, finished with an uppercut at his chin. After the little exhibition, Naruto backflipped 3 times, landing in his stance, smirking at a now lightly bruised Kakashi. Wow, Naruto, I'll admit I'm very impressed. You're incredibly fast for your age. In fact, your fighting style kind of reminds me of the 4th Hokage, Naruto. He fought like you did. Agile, ruthless blows and moved with a grace that you possess, Kakashi said, hoping Naruto would catch the hint. But he wasn't lying. Naruto truly reminded him of Minato-sensei's taijutsu. The graceful blows, the precipitated movements were something he's only seen in 2 people. The compliment made Naruto widen his eyes. Right, Sensei was Tuchan's prized pupil. I'll have to tell him that I already know of my heritage after this. He beamed at Kakashi. Thanks, Sensei. It means a lot to me. He spoke excisedly. But it's over, Kakashi said seriously. He rushed Naruto at Hokage speeds, so fast that Naruto himself didn't register Kakashi move. He feigned a blow to Naruto's left rib, and shunshin to Naruto's other side, and chopped him in the neck, making Naruto dispel. Kakashi widened his eyes. So the real Naruto's even stronger. Heh, I don't expect any less from Minato-sensei's child, he thought with a smirk. With Satsuki. Satsuki was shocked, to say the least. She deduced long ago that Naruto was stronger than he let on. But she had no idea that Naruto was this strong. From her point of view, the battle was mostly a blur of silver, green, black, and blonde. She was really shocked when she saw Naruto do the handstand move, and immediately realized his plan of downplaying his true speed, then accelerating to catch Kakashi off guard, and smirked. She didn't hear what Kakashi said to make Naruto widen his eyes, and was intrigued. She's never seen Naruto show that much emotion since he dropped his facade, and wondered just what made Naruto show so much shock. Then Kakashi disappeared to Naruto in nothing more than a small blur, and chopped Naruto in the neck, making him dispel. Solid clones, she thought, puzzled. She shook herself out of her musings, after absent-mindedly noticing an opening where Kakashi was standing. She hoisted a couple shuriken out of her pouch and threw them at Kakashi. Without even turning, Kakashi caught the shuriken in his hand, making Satsuki curse. I did nothing to him, and now he knows my location. Damn it, she thought. Yo! She jumped when she heard a male voice in front of her, and noticed Kakashi with an eye smile, standing behind her. He chuckled at her expense and waved at her. Satsuki narrowed her eyes and gave him a death glare. She rushed Kakashi immediately and threw a kick at him. Much slower than Naruto, but fast in her own right, he thought as they parried blows. Suddenly, Satsuki backflipped and went through hand signs at speeds that would make most beginner Chunin jealous. When she ended on the tiger hand seal, Kakashi widened his eyes. Genin aren't supposed to know fire ninjutsu, Kakashi thought aloud. I'm not like the others, Satsuki retorted confidently. She's arrogant, but she's got the strength to back it up, Kakashi mused. Say that once you get a bell. Besides, Naruto was way faster than you, Kakashi said, with a little mirth in his tone at the end, making Satsuki grit her teeth. Me and the dobe are nothing alike, Satsuki angrily yelled. She inhaled greatly and spoke. Fire style, great fireball jutsu, and blew a huge stream of fire. She smirked confidently when she noticed Kakashi get enveloped by the flames. Serves him right for comparing me with him, she thought. Wow, You're better with fire jutsu than I was at your age, she heard. She looked around the area where Kakashi came from. Left, right, above, below, she heard, and a split second later, a hand emerged from the ground and grabbed her ankle. Earth style, headhunter jutsu, Kakashi called and pulled her down. A minute later, she saw Kakashi walk up to her. Well, looks like you're not much different from the other two after all. Huh? He questioned with a teasing tone, making Satsuki fume. Well, I'm going to go find someone who won't waste my time. Jareni, he called out with a lazy wave of the hand. After Kakashi left to go find Sakura, a swirl of purple flames materialized, startling Satsuki, and Naruto stood, hands in his pockets. Yo, he called lazily. Satsuki blushed, noticing she was in a tight spot. I think I figured the test out, Naruto called to her. Well, obviously, we need to get the bells, she snarked at him. Naruto sighed. What was the first lesson we learned at the academy? Naruto calmly questioned her. Look underneath the underneath? She replied, wondering where this was going. Right, and I think that the bells was a cover-up to the real test. I believe Kakashi pit us against each other and threatened to send one of us to the academy to fix our mindsets in a battle royale position. A classic but clever psychology trick. We should work together, along with Sakura, to get the bells, and if I'm wrong, I'll sacrifice myself so you two can advance. Naruto requested. Satsuki sighed and complied, but only because Naruto said he'd sacrifice himself if he wasn't right. He helped Satsuki out of the hole and told her his plan. She had to admit it was a good plan. With Sakura. Sakura was also surprised by Naruto's skill. She realized he was smarter than he let on. She wanted to ignore it at first and pretend it was a fluke, but after he introduced himself, she really couldn't. Naruto was strong, much stronger than her, stronger than Satsuki, stronger than Kiba. She was getting a reality check of sorts and realized Naruto wouldn't be worshipping her anymore or showering her with compliments, which hurt for some reason. Sakura, she heard. She looked behind her. She saw Kiba, making her smile a megawatt smile. He flashed her a hearty grin, making her blush. I've come to save you, Sakura, she heard him say, and a moment later he was stabbed multiple times by a barrage of shuriken. Kiba widened his eyes in shock, and she had a horrified expression on her face. Kiba Kun, she screeched out and ran over to him. He coughed out blood, and she cradled his head. After noticing his eyes went lifeless, and his body felt a tad bit colder, she burst into tears. She was sobbing hard when she felt a chop to her neck. She turned around, and the last thing she saw was a look of disappointment from a masked jonin, before she fell into a black abyss. Kakashi sighed. Was I too harsh? He wondered. He shunshined over to the log. 20 minutes left. He mused. He leaned on the log and pulled his Ika out and started reading it while subconsciously scouting for dangers. With Satsuki and Naruto. Naruto was running to where he sensed Sakura's chakra signature was, Satsuki flanking him. They sighed when they noticed tear stains on her face and her body limp. Naruto shook her awake, and she fluttered her eyes, before her face took on a horrified expression. Whatever the fuck happened to you? It was a genjutsu, Naruto said impatiently and bluntly, making Sakura slump in disappointment for falling for such a basic trick. Listen, there's only one way we can get the bells from a jonin, and it's by working together, and me and Satsuki have a plan. You in? He asked her. She weakly nodded, having no better idea. Great, we got 15 minutes, so listen up. With Kakashi. Kakashi looked at the clock. 10 minutes, till the clock rings. He felt a spike of chakra in the air, before noticing a gigantic fireball coming his way. He widened his eyes and used a quick substitution to get out of the way. The moment he landed, he came across Naruto in mid-chunin speeds. They parried multiple blows, absent-mindedly noticing Naruto was aiming at his face, but paying no heed to it. Naruto and Satsuki both attacked him at once, and their teamwork was good, for people that have never worked together before. It wasn't the best, but it wasn't laughable either. Kakashi was actually sweating a little, not being able to use his Sharingan, or ninjutsu was a bit difficult against 2 Chunin-level shinobi, even for someone of Kakashi's caliber. He felt his danger senses scream at him to dodge, so he backflipped, giving himself some space, and saw a barrel of shuriken spike where he was just standing, a moment earlier and paled. He turned around sharply to face the direction of where the shuriken came from, and saw Sakura smirking at him. Sakura kept throwing kunai after kunai and shurikens at Kakashi, while Naruto and Satsuki were going for hand-to-hand combat. Ring. Kakashi smiled. Well, you 3 worked together, but it looks like you failed, Kakashi said, keeping the smile on his face. He raised an eyebrow when he noticed Naruto smirk. Oh really, sensei? Naruto asked in a sweet tone, and dangled the bells loosely. Kakashi's lone eye widened. Sakura gasped and Satsuki smirked. Kakashi frantically patted himself down, and gasped when he noticed there were no bells strapped to his waist. What? But how? When? Kakashi asked. Naruto smirked again. Flashback moments earlier. Kakashi felt a spike of chakra, and widened his eyes when he noticed a gigantic fireball come his way. While he was putting his book away in the pocket facing opposite of the bells, Naruto appeared out of the flames, with the Maisegakure no Jutsu, and a coat of chakra laced around his body, to protect himself from the flames. He cut off the bells from Kakashi's waist with a kunai, and let them fall into his hand. Naruto shunshined out of the fireball, a second before it dispersed. Flashback end. Kakashi was jumping for joy on the inside, but played it cool outwardly. Well, I'm impressed. The 3 of you worked with each other very well. Sakura, you attacked from long range while Naruto and Satsuki attacked me from close up. Congratulations, the 3 of you pass. Meet me at the mission's office tomorrow at 8 a.m. for our first mission. Sakura had a huge smile on her face. Satsuki actually smiled for once, instead of smirking, and Naruto looked calm as ever, but you could see a glint of self-satisfaction in his eyes. Both Sakura and Satsuki left, leaving Naruto and Kakashi. When Kakashi was about to leave, Naruto spoke to him. Hey sensei, I wanted to speak to you actually, Naruto said. Sure, what is it, Naruto? Kakashi asked calmly. What you said about me fighting similar to the 4th Hokage. Did you really mean it? Naruto questioned, making Kakashi freeze, and his eye widened. There's no way he knows. Kakashi cleared his throat. Yes, Naruto, I was being serious. I was the Yondaime student after all, so I would know. Thanks. It's nice being compared to my Tuchan already, Naruto said with an eye smile, and Kakashi's eye widened even more, if possible. Don't worry, I found out when I was 6. Being a genius has its perks. Hokage Gigi already knows, he said, which Kakashi nodded curtly to. I'll tell you all about your parents sometime, Naruto. They were truly wonderful people. After my father died, they practically raised me. Kakashi spoke softly. Naruto's eyes watered a little. Arigato, sensei. I'll see you tomorrow, Naruto said, before disappearing in a swirl of purple flames. I need to ask him to teach me that custom shunshin, Kakashi thought, while walking back to report his success to Hokage-sama. 1 month later. Scarecrow in position. Over. Ice Princess in position. Over. Cherry Blossom in position. Over. Dazzling Smile in position. Target locked. Over. No response. Asterisk Sigh asterisk Whiskers in position. Over. Asterisk Snickers asterisk Great. Stage 2. Acquire target. Over. Naruto vanished and grabbed the daimyo's wife's cat. Started screaming and swayed its legs, so Naruto chopped its neck, making it go limp. Target acquired. Over, Naruto said through his mic. Great. Is the earpiece over its left ear? Over. Hi. The earpiece has been confirmed. Over. Great. Mission. Capture Tora is a success. Hokage's office. Team 7. Looking for a new mission, Hokage-sama, Kakashi said calmly. Still reading his Ika. All right, let's see. Cut the weeds, paint the fence, Hiruzen said slowly. Hokage-sama? Permission to speak? Naruto said with a small bow. Yes, go ahead, Naruto, Hiruzen said with a raised eyebrow, still not used to the respect. I request a C-ranked mission, Hokage-sama, but Irika was quick to butt in. Hell no. You three are still rookie genin. You need more experience before you can take on a C-rank mission, Irika said aggressively. Irika-sensei, I understand, but what better way to gain experience than to go out in the real world? Besides, it can be useful in preparations for the Chunin exams, Naruto said calmly. But Irika was about to retort when Hiruzen responded. It's alright, Irika. They have Kakashi with them anyways. Alright, this will be an escort and protect mission. Send him in, Hiruzen called out. A moment later, a tanned man walked in. He had a gray outfit on, glasses, a straw hat, and a sake bottle in one hand. These are the runts that are supposed to protect me? I ordered for ninja protection, not a group of brats. The pink one doesn't even look like a ninja, he said in a gruffy voice, making her scowl at him. Cha, who does he think he is? Her inner consciousness questioned. Kakashi, I smiled. Don't worry about it, sir. My name's Kakashi, and I'm the leader of this mission, and I assure you my students are fine. The man shrugged. Whatever you say. My name's Tazuna the bridge builder, and I expect you to protect me with your lives. Tazuna spoke, making all four nod. All right, Team 7, get your stuff ready, and meet me at the gates in an hour. Kakashi spoke, and the four of them vanished. Teaser, a couple of chapters later. Whiz. A kunai whizzed through the air, making Genma jump, and narrowly dodged the kunai. He scowled in the direction it came from, and noticed the kunai, but realized it wasn't a regular kunai. It was a tri-pronged kunai. Genma, along with Mikoto and all the seniors, widened their eyes to comical proportions when they noticed this, and let their jaws hang. Not a second later, a flash of yellow left as soon as it appeared, and Naruto Namikaze stood there in all his glory. He was not wearing his eyeliner, and his hair was spikier than usual, with two thickish side bangs. His eyes were narrowed in cold chips, a permanent glare fixed on his face. He had a really dark blue long-sleeved shirt, with matching pants and a shinobi pouch tied to his right thigh along with black shinobi boots. But that wasn't the eye-catcher. He was wearing a white high-collared haori that went down to his knees. It had bright red flames licking the bottom and sleeves. On the back were the kanjis for Dio Senko, God Flash, in red. His arms were crossed, coupled with his cloak flowing in the wind made him look incredibly powerful, with an aura that only one person had before. Looking into his eyes would make even the toughest war veterans flinch. All of the Konoha 12 were awed by his entrance. Nothing could top that in the flashy department. Wow, Naruto looks so hot, Ino fawned, making Satsuki glare daggers in her direction, which Ino ignored. Teaser end. Naruto arrived at the village gates at 9:45 a.m. with his classic outfit on. Bandages wrapped around his head, like Ashura, and his Hitai 8 tied to his waist. A couple of minutes later, he sensed Satsuki, Sakura, and Tazuna coming to the vicinity, and after exchanging brief greetings, waited for Kakashi to arrive. Not too long later, Kakashi appeared with a leaf shunshin, and after signing out of the village they left. Naruto, Sakura began, making Naruto raise an eyebrow at her. Why don't you have a bag like the rest of us? She asked. Naruto took a scroll out of his pocket and dangled it. I have all of my stuff put in this scroll. This way I don't have to bother carrying anything. Sakura awed at that, and they started walking in silence after that. Well, that's what some of them believed. Naruto was having an internal argument with a certain furball. If you paid close attention, you could see his eyebrow twitching every couple of minutes. You brat. Why don't you listen to me? You have a perfect chance to kill the Screecher and you won't take it, Kurama shouted in exasperation. Because it's pointless and stupid. I'm trying to prove to everyone that I'm not a monster. So if I kill her, what good would that do? I'm not gonna kill Sakura, you dumb furball. Now drop it. But she's loud, screechy. The moment someone mentions that mutt boy, she drops all logic and believes he is Kami on Earth and she's a burden. Then she'll train and get stronger, so she won't be a burden. Could it be that you want to pursue the vixen? And Naruto could practically feel Kurama's smug expression, but refused to explode. Ah, you should have just said so. Kid, you know I can help you with that, Kurama said with an evil grin. He loved pranking his host. Wait, Naruto started, but suddenly his hormones went haywire and his mind was overloaded with thoughts of Sakura in a skimpy bikini. Naruto turned completely red in the face. Whether from anger or from blushing will never be known. That's you furball. Back to the cage for you, Naruto yelled at the top of his lungs, making everyone's head whip in his direction. Naruto, not knowing he said it out loud, just turned his mindscape, which was previously a large forest, into a tiny cage again, making Kurama whimper. He smirked victoriously until he noticed everyone staring at him. Naruto blushed in embarrassment and scratched the back of his neck. Hihi. Did I say that out loud? He said sheepishly. Satsuki and Tazuna raised eyebrows at this. Sakura nodded and Kakashi narrowed his eyes, knowing what Naruto meant by furball. But before he could privately ask Naruto something, he sensed chakra a couple of 100 feet away. He glanced at Naruto, who looked back at him wearily, and knew Naruto sensed it too. They both had one thought in mind. Genjutsu. Naruto suddenly smirked and Kakashi raised an eyebrow, wondering what Naruto had in mind. Hey guys, gimme a second, gotta take a leak, Naruto said. Kakashi gawked at him, wide-eyed. The others just nodded at him, oblivious to what Naruto was really planning. Naruto skipped over to the pond and took his leak where the demon brothers were. Right after he tied his pants back up and washed his hands with a water bottle, the demon brothers materialized from the pond, and if looks could kill, Naruto would be dead thousands of times over. You brat! You peed on us on purpose, didn't you? Snarled Gozu, making the others snort, and Naruto looks at him innocently. I have no idea what you're talking about, sir, Naruto said. Meizu threw his chain at Naruto, who dodged it easily. Sakura, guard Tazuna. Naruto, Satsuki, you two take Gozu. I'll take Meizu, Kakashi ordered quickly. Everyone nodded and got in position. Naruto and Satsuki ran at Gozu. Naruto knew this would be a good opportunity to test the Hiraishin, but he had to do it discreetly, and while Kakashi toyed with Meizu. Gozu threw his chain at Satsuki, who narrowly dodged it, and climbed up the chains to kick him in the jaw. Naruto glanced around. Sakura and Tazuna were watching Kakashi, and the three of them were faced backside to Naruto so they wouldn't see. He hinged his tri-pronged kunai into a regular-looking kunai, and saw Satsuki was on the ground. She was pushed back by one of Gozu's chains. Naruto took this moment to throw two kunais. One was a regular kunai that he used to pretend he kawarimi'd and not Hiraishin'd. He narrowed his eyes, and in that split second, where no one was focusing on Naruto or Gozu, he threw one kunai an inch next to Gozu's head, and the other a little away. In a yellow flash, he disappeared and reappeared behind Gozu, twisted his body, and knocked Gozu over at the side of the head, and substituted with the kunai that landed at the tree with a thud. Satsuki and Gozu were a little confused, being so close, and it didn't really look like a substitution but passed it off as a really fast one. He twisted his body again and kicked Gozu with a roundhouse kick to the chin, knocking Gozu out. With Kakashi. Kakashi ran at Meizu at high Chunin speeds. He was too lazy to try, but he wanted to get this over with quickly. As funny as Naruto's little stunt was, he wanted to use that moment to determine whether they were going after Kakashi or Tazuna. Now he'd have to interrogate these two the hard way. He was toying with Meizu, dodging his chains narrowly. He looked at Naruto for a second, since he didn't really need to pay attention to this B-rank missing nin. He saw Naruto glanced around and raised an eyebrow, wondering why. He wanted to investigate a little further but had to dodge another one of those pesky chains. Right before he knocked Meizu out, he could have sworn he saw a tiny yellow flash out of the corner of his eye and snapped his head in that direction so fast, while knocking Meizu out cold at the same time. He saw Naruto give Gozu a roundhouse kick and cursed. He would pry Naruto until he told him what it was. Kakashi could have sworn he saw the yellow flash return, but he wouldn't question it now. A couple of minutes later, Gozu's eyes fluttered open, and he immediately notices he can't move his body. He sees that his body and Meizu's are tied to a tree, with chakra binding rope and cursed inwardly. Ah, finally awake are we? He hears a voice and looks at where it came from. He spots a man with a green flak jacket, a mask covering his face, silver hair, and a Konoha Hitai 8 covering his left eye. He also sees a blonde-haired boy, a raven and pink-haired girl standing next to his target, a 45-year-old drunkard. Well, we can do this the easy way or the hard way. Why did me and my students? Kakashi asked, leaking a little killing intent. Gozu started sweating but glared at Kakashi anyways. Fuck off. I'm not telling you shit. Gozu swore. Kakashi sighed. Why is this mission so troublesome? He thought, making two lazy Nara sneeze. Demonic illusion, hell viewing technique, Kakashi thought, making a view hand signs. Immediately, he starts screaming, and after a couple of awkward and uncomfortable seconds, the man spoke. Okay, I'll talk. Make it stop. Please, Gozu screamed. Kakashi smiled. He dispelled the genjutsu and clasped his hands. Excellent. How about you start now? Kakashi cheerily spoke. Gozu glared daggers at him but spoke nonetheless. A man named Gato of Gato's Magnate Company hired us. He wants the bridge builder dead so Gato's monopoly isn't ruined. We were supposed to rendezvous with Zabuza Momochi and report back to Gato. Kakashi smiled. Thanks for the information. It'll be useful. Now the ANBU should arrive in an hour or two. Have fun. Wait, Gozu said, making them stop. You, Blondie, how'd you know that there was a genjutsu under the pond? Naruto rolled his eyes. A random pond on the ground, during a sunny day, where it hasn't rained in weeks. Very astute. Naruto snarked at Gozu, making Satsuki giggle slightly. She decided Naruto could be rather funny, as long as his sarcasm wasn't directed at you. Naruto was drawn to Satsuki's melodious giggle for a second, before shaking his head, wondering where that came from. They left afterwards, paying zero attention to Gozu's swearing and Meizu slowly waking up. Time skip a couple hours. Tazuna explained his situation to Team 7, right before Team 7 versus Zabuza Momochi. Naruto heard some rustling from the bushes and threw a kunai at where he heard, alerting everyone else, and he saw a rabbit stumble. Naruto, how could you? It's just a poor bunny, Sakura screeched. Sakura, shut up. We're ninja. If you can't kill a bunny, how do you expect to kill real people in the future? He asked her, making Sakura pale, but Kakashi was focusing on something else. The rabbit's fur is brown. The only time that happens is wintertime, meaning the rabbit is domesticated. That means its purpose is substitution. And as if on cue, he heard whirling. Everyone duck. Kakashi screamed. He ducked, pulling Tazuna down with him. Sakura ducked instantly, and Naruto pulled Satsuki down, making her blush slightly. Why is the dobe so warm? Wait, why am I even thinking of that? She thought, unknowingly turning even redder. Thud. A large cleaver, known as the Kubikurabocho, landed, cleaved to one of the trees, and Zabuza walked to the tree and plucked his blade out. The man stood over the area with his sword in hand, over his shoulder in all his glory. Well, 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 Kakashi of the Sharingan. No wonder the demon brothers lost so easily, Zabuza spoke in a gruff voice. All three genin had various reactions to that. Sharingan? What's that? Sakura wondered. Sharingan? But how? I'm the last Uchiha alive. Other than him, Satsuki wondered, her thoughts turning dark at the end. As for Naruto, his eyebrow just twitched in irritation, knowing that Kakashi was taking all of the credit, even though he took Gozu down with the Hiraishin. Zabuza Momochi, demon of the hidden mist, ranked Nuke-nin, wanted for attempting to murder the Yonde Mizukage, Kakashi said with narrowed eyes. Looks like my reputation precedes me, Zabuza said in a mock-surprised tone. Listen, I'm really not in the mood for this, so how about you just hand over the old man and I'll let you and your brats live, Zabuza offered. Sorry, but we won't be abandoning our first real mission, Satsuki replied with a smirk. Ha! They're a bunch of rookies too. How pathetic, Zabuza taunted, making her seethe. Naruto, Satsuki, Sakura. You three guard Tazuna. Zabuza is above your skill level. Naruto knew there was no use complaining, so he, Satsuki and Sakura did a manji formation around Tazuna, albeit reluctantly. Kakashi lifted his headband, revealing a 3-tomo Sharingan, making Satsuki widen her eyes. Naruto cursed. He knew now there was no way he could risk using the Hiraishin with Kakashi's Sharingan now active. Suddenly, a large mist covered the entire area, killing intent plastered all over the place. Tazuna, Sakura, and Satsuki were shaking hard. Kakashi and Naruto were fine. Naruto was used to killing intent from Kurama's intimidation lessons, and Kakashi since, well, he spent over 10 years in ANBU. This level of killing intent does nothing to someone of his caliber. A ghost-chilling voice shook them to the core, however. 8 vital points: liver, lungs, spine, clavicle, jugular vein, brain, kidneys, and the heart. Any of these areas struck too deeply makes a one-hit kill. Which one shall I aim for? Satsuki started shaking hard. I can't do this anymore, Satsuki thought, slowly bringing a kunai to her throat. Naruto put his hand on top of hers. She snapped her neck to him and widened her eyes when she saw him flash her a smile. I won't let any of my teammates get hurt, Naruto said softly, making Satsuki blush. Naruto didn't notice her blush, but Kakashi did, and he eye-smiled. Naruto knew they were in a tight spot, whilst Zabuza taunted them some more and came up with a quick plan. Futon. Tappa, Naruto thought, and immediately cleared out the mist, getting a scowl from Zabuza and an appreciative glance from Kakashi. Kakashi and Zabuza ran at each other. Thus the battle began. Kakashi and Zabuza traded blows, and eventually, Zabuza was getting tired of Kakashi's Sharingan keeping Zabuza on his toes. Zabuza skidded back after getting by Kakashi and started weaving hand signs at high Jonin speeds. The tomos of Kakashi's Sharingan spun a little and glowed before stopping again. Kakashi's hands twitched for a second and he started pulling the same hand signs as Zabuza was. Water style, Water Dragon Jutsu. The two of them yelled at the same time, and out of the river, 2 large water dragons sprouted, glowing yellow eyes glaring at each other and collided in a substantial explosion of water. Using this as a distraction, Kakashi ran at Zabuza at his top speed and slashed at Zabuza, before Zabuza turned into a pool of water. TSK, Mizu Bunshin, Kakashi thought out loud. The real Zabuza smirked and shunshined behind Kakashi, before slicing at Kakashi's head, making his smirk widen for a second, before turning into a snarl when he noticed Kakashi collapse into water. You're pesky, I copied my jutsu, didn't it? Zabuza asked angrily, while Kakashi replied with an eye smile. Kakashi threw a kick at Zabuza, who had no problem dodging it by ducking, hitting Kakashi with the blunt side of his blade at the same time making Kakashi rocket back. Too slow, Zabuza mocked. Water style, Water Prison Jutsu. Zabuza shouted and had Kakashi trapped in a bubble of water. Effed, Zabuza scoffed. You three are pathetic. By the time I was your age, I already had tons of blood on my hands. Until your faces are in my bingo book, you aren't real shinobi. What do you mean? Sakura stuttered out. He's talking about how he became a shinobi. 15 years ago, a child who wasn't even in the academy yet killed an entire graduating class single-handedly. Kakashi continued, horrifying Sakura and Satsuki. It sure was a fun day, Zabuza said in a mock-cheer tone. Naruto used this moment to rush Zabuza at Chunin speeds. He punched Zabuza in the stomach, but it didn't do much. Zabuza turned around fast and attempted to cleave Naruto's head, but Naruto jumped on top of Zabuza's blade and kicked him in the chin, making him stumble back. "Don't attack Zabuza, Naruto. Take the client and run," Kakashi yelled frantically. "No way. Wasn't it you who told us those who abandon their comrades are worse than trash?" Naruto retorted. Kakashi had a flicker of pride in his eyes for a second, before sighing and relented. Naruto did a half-ram seal and said, "Kagebunshin no Jutsu," out loud. 3 shadow clones flickered into reality and ran at Zabuza. "Suetun, Mizurappa," Zabuza said, and a large gust of water flew out of Zabuza's mouth to rush the blonde genin. Naruto substituted with a nearby rock and moved out of the way. He created 30 shadow clones to rush Zabuza, and he shunshined back to Satsuki to tell her his plan. With Naruto. "Satsuki, I used those clones as a distraction, but I think I have a real plan to trick Zabuza," Naruto said. Satsuki snapped out of her stupor, and for once acknowledging Naruto as the leader, she asked him what his plan was. He unsealed a folded Fuma Shuriken from a scroll and handed it to her. She glared at him and he just looked at her firmly. She reluctantly took the Fuma Shuriken, but the second she felt it in her hands, she widened her eyes and smirked. Naruto smirked back at her before shunshining away. With Zabuza. Zabuza had just finished the last handful of clones when he noticed the black-haired brat running straight at him with a Fuma Shuriken in hand. Zabuza's danger senses screamed at him and he dodged a barrage of kunai at the last second, making him drop his hold on the water prison, freeing Kakashi. He saw Satsuki do a chakra-enhanced jump and throw her Fuma Shuriken at him. He scoffed at her and grabbed the Fuma Shuriken with his hand, as if it was a boomerang. Naruto smirked and threw a shuriken at Zabuza, who rolled his eyes. "Still not good enough to hurt me, brats." Suddenly, Zabuza heard a poof behind him and widened his eyes. He whipped back and saw Naruto grinning at him. Naruto threw a barrage of shuriken at Zabuza, who narrowly dodged them, but a couple hit him anyways. Kakashi shunshined in front of him and Satsuki. "Excellent plan, you two. Distracting Zabuza long enough to trick him and make him cancel his technique," Kakashi complimented. "TSK, I lost concentration for a second and canceled the jutsu. Don't get cocky. You were forced to let go of it," Kakashi glared. "It's over for you, Zabuza." Kakashi spoke before weaving hand signs. "Suetun, Daibakufu no Jutsu." Kakashi spat out a literal water vortex, and it spanned to Zabuza at incredible speeds. The vortex hit Zabuza head-on, who had no time to dodge it, and he was slammed into a tree and left, dazed. "Can you see the future?" Zabuza asked wearily. "Yes, and your future is death," Kakashi said, making them all sweat drop with his corny lines. He was about to finish off Zabuza with a kunai before a couple of senbon needles struck Zabuza in the neck, making him pass out. They instantly went on guard when they noticed a hunter-nin jump out of the bushes. "You were right, his future is death," the person said. Kakashi walked forward and checked for Zabuza's pulse, finding nothing. "If that is all, I will take this body back to Kiri. The body holds many secrets native to the mist, and we would like to decipher them before getting rid of his body." And with that, he disappeared in a water shunshin. "Well, if that's all," Kakashi started before falling unconscious. "Kakashi-sensei," Sakura yelled. "Don't worry, it's probably because his body isn't used to the Sharingan. You can ask him about it later," Naruto said, when he noticed Satsuki narrow her eyes at the mention of Kakashi's Sharingan, and she nodded. "Tazuna, how far is your house from here?" Naruto questioned, while making 3 shadow clones to carry Kakashi. "Not too far, it's about 15 minutes. Tazuna replied, alcohol long forgotten. "All right, you take the lead, we'll trail you," Naruto replied. Tazuna nodded, and they walked to Tazuna's house. Time skip, 30 minutes later. Kakashi's squad was sitting in Tazuna's house. After they introduced themselves to Tsunami, Tazuna's daughter, Kakashi was resting in a room. Sakura was watching over Kakashi. Satsuki was looking out the window. Tazuna was sitting in a corner drinking, and Naruto, despite Tsunami's protests, was helping her with dinner. "I'm home!" a yell was heard, making everyone's head snap in the voice's direction. A boy walked in through the door, making everyone look at him. The boy had spiky black hair. He was wearing a white bucket hat with blue stripes and green overalls over a white short-sleeved hoodie. The boy looked like he was glaring at everything, but his eyes brightened when he saw his grandfather. "Gigi!" the boy exclaimed and hugged his grandfather. "Hello, Inari." Tazuna chuckled, ruffling the boy's hair, making Naruto crack a small smile at the heartwarming scene. "Inari, greet these shinobi here. They protected your grandfather while he was on his way here," Tsunami said with a tender smile. Inari just scoffed at the claim. "It doesn't matter, Gigi. They're going to die anyways," he continued, making Tsunami and Tazuna frown. Naruto's jaw dropped. He wondered why he would say something so depressing. Satsuki didn't take it too well, though. "You don't know that, you brat," Satsuki said with a little anger in her voice. "Satsuki, don't argue with kids," Naruto admonished her, making her turn her head. Dinner went quietly, Kakashi finally waking up and confirming everyone made it back to Tazuna's house safely. After being given a pair of crushes, they had dinner quietly, except for Tsunami thanking Naruto for helping her with dinner, making him nod at her. Next morning. The next morning, nothing much happened, until during breakfast Kakashi spoke. "We need to start training to kill Zabuza again," he said seriously, making everyone's eyes widen, except for Naruto. "I reached the same conclusion as you," Naruto said calmly, making Kakashi smile. "What are you two babbling about? Zabuza died 2 days ago, remember?" Satsuki said with a light glare, Sakura nodding frantically. "Actually, Zabuza probably isn't dead. The weapons that the hunter need were senbon needles. Those are used in acupuncture to put people in near-death-like states, which is why I felt no pulse coming from Zabuza," Kakashi remarked. "Plus, Kiri Hunter-nin are supposed to cut off the head and burn the body immediately," Naruto commented. "Good observations, Naruto. With these facts we can conclude that Zabuza is very much alive." Kakashi spoke, and Satsuki and Sakura had to agree with them. It made sense. "Isn't it possible you're overthinking it a little?" Tazuna questioned nervously. He did not want to face that man again. "No. When a ninja senses something wrong, he must act on it," Kakashi said firmly. "But what are we going to do, sensei? Now that Zabuza knows our skills, it'll be easier for him to beat us. Not to mention that fake Hunter Nin is probably Zabuza's accomplice," Naruto asked wearily. "What do you think?" Kakashi said, clasping his hands together. "I'll train you three, of course," Kakashi declared with an smile. "Besides, Zabuza will need around 1 week to fully come back to life. By then, I'll be completely healed and we can fight those three. Sakura, you'll be guarding Tazuna. Naruto and Satsuki will take on the fake Hunter Nin and I'll fight Zabuza." An hour later, training fields. Kakashi stood with his crutches in the playing field. Standing opposite of Kakashi were his 3 students, Satsuki, Sakura, and Naruto. "What are we learning, sensei?" Naruto asked with a flat tone and an extremely bored look on his face that made Kakashi's eyebrow twitch. "Well, my cute little genin," Kakashi started and moved directly behind a tree. "You 3 are going to be learning how to climb a tree." Naruto rolled his eyes. Sakura and Satsuki stared at him in confusion. "But sensei, we already know how to climb trees?" Sakura questioned. "He means with no hands," Naruto interjected before Kakashi could reply. Seeing the questioning glances Sakura and Satsuki sent him, he sighed and walked up the tree with no hands. Satsuki and Sakura widened their eyes, and Kakashi half expected this. Wind manipulation requires precise chakra control. Honestly, Naruto huffed. You can launch fireballs, turn the ground into mud, make literal duplicates of yourself with chakra. Why wouldn't you be able to walk on trees? Naruto sarcastically questioned, making the three of them sweat drop. Kakashi faced Sakura and Satsuki. You need to concentrate and direct chakra to your feet. If you use too much chakra, the bark will blast. If you use too little, you'll slip right off the tree, Kakashi said, and threw 2 kunai at Satsuki and Sakura's feet. Use those kunai to mark your progress. A running start helps. Naruto, come with me, Kakashi said with an eye smile. Kakashi and Naruto left the other two, walking over to a more secluded area in the forest. Before you ask, I already know water walking too, Naruto said quickly, making Kakashi mentally curse. Then I guess we can start with the more advanced stuff, HM? Kakashi questioned. He handed Naruto a piece of paper. This is chakra paper. I channel chakra to it and it either burns, splits, zaps, or dampens, yada yada yada. My affinities are lightning and wind, Naruto said. And sure enough, after channeling his chakra to the paper split in two, both halves crinkling, making Kakashi's eye twitch. Naruto made a forward motion and Kakashi leaned in. Between me and you, I'm working on my own lightning jutsu, Naruto whispered, making Kakashi widen his eyes. /N yes, in my story, Naruto will invent the Kirin. Those who oppose, suck it. My stories, my rules. Naruto put a finger to his lips. Keep it hush-hush though. It's a secret I'm saving for the Chunin exams. Maybe I'll use it earlier, but only around our squad, Naruto continued with a wink, making Kakashi shake his head. Care for a demonstration? Kakashi asked with a little hope in his voice. Despite not as eager as the 4th Hokage, Kakashi still loved testing/experimenting with new jutsu. Naruto smirked before shaking his head. Sorry, it takes too long to get ready. I draw in the natural lightning from the sky, plus the jutsu isn't exactly finished yet. I'm still molding the lightning into a dragon head, Naruto replied. Kakashi could only shake his head at that. He could already tell it would be a mass-destructive jutsu. Well, what are you going to do now then? Kakashi questioned Naruto. Naruto grinned at him and crossed his fingers. Instantly, around 300 shadow clones flickered into existence. Kakashi's eye nearly popped out of its skull. Naruto looked at Kakashi before speaking to him once more. Don't tell this to anybody. The Hokage already knows. All right? Naruto said, noticing Kakashi tense when he mentioned secrecy. Kakashi relaxed and promised Naruto his word on not telling anyone. Naruto stuck his right hand out and gripped his wrist with his left hand. One of his shadow clones started burling its hands on top of Naruto and a loud swishing noise slowly sounded out. Kakashi widened his eyes and took a step back when he noticed a blue ball swirling into existence. Before he could so much as say a word, the ball blasted out of existence, and Naruto sported chakra burns on his hands. Naruto, was that what I think it was? Kakashi asked quietly. Yep, it was the Rasengan. I haven't mastered it yet. It keeps bursting whenever I compress it, so I'm working on that right now, Naruto replied. Kakashi was snapped out of his flashback and I smiled. Sure, you work on that, Naruto. I'll go and watch over the other two, Kakashi said. Time skip 3 hours. Naruto laid on the ground, panting. He hasn't perfected the Rasengan yet, but he can successfully form a Rasengan with the help of a shadow clone, but it still takes around 15 seconds, and he needs 4 pairs of hands to perform it. Tomorrow he would practice shortening the time to 5 seconds, and from there he would try to form a Rasengan with 2 hands, then 1. Back to the present, Naruto ended his gruesome training with a ton of his shadow clones. Needless to say, he came out the victor due to the fact that Kagebunshin dispel with a single hit but still sported massive bruises everywhere. In Naruto's mind, however, the real win didn't come from defeating the clones. The The real win came because he managed to find holes in his taijutsu stance and fix them. He could tell his taijutsu improved by leaps and bounds. After a couple more minutes, he decided to head back, but went to check on the other two first. He walked over to the forest. He remembered Sakura and Satsuki were at a leisurely pace. He was mindlessly chatting with Kurama while walking, and soon enough he spotted Satsuki. He raised an eyebrow when he realized Kakashi and Sakura were nowhere to be seen, and he walked over to her. "Where are the others?" Naruto asked, making her snap her head in his direction. But she subconsciously softened her gaze when she noticed it was Naruto. Naruto, the dense blockhead didn't realize it, but Kurama did and mentally chuckled. She glared at the tree again, trying to burn holes through it with her eyes. Naruto realized he liked Satsuki better with a smile on her face, rather than a frown. And wait, where did those thoughts come from? He wondered and shook his head. Sakura already mastered the tree walking. She's doing the water walking right now. Satsuki spoke bitterly. So that's why she's upset. Sakura has low chakra reserves, so it's easier for her to master tree walking. You, on the other hand, have Chunin level reserves, so it's obviously harder for you, Naruto lectured her. Satsuki couldn't help but smile at him softly. He always finds a way to make her happy, no matter what. Satsuki just shrugged and went back to her tree walking. She kept skiing and huffing whenever she fell, and eventually Naruto gave her advice. "Don't get angry," Naruto started, making Satsuki raise an eyebrow. "Take deep breaths while attempting the exercise. Chakra is a mix of one's physical and spiritual energy, so by keeping your heart rate steady and emotions under control, it'll keep your chakra flow steady as well, and the tree walking will be easier." Naruto spoke softly. Satsuki decided to take his word for it, and after a couple deep breaths, she ran up the tree again, and this time she managed to get to the top and blinked at how easy it was. "Come on, we should go back now. It's getting late and the others might be worried about us," he told her with a small smile. She smiled back at him, and the two of them walked back together. Time skip, 3 days later, 2 days before the battle at the bridge. Kakashi's squad and Tezuna's family were eating dinner at Tezuna's house. To say it was eventful would be to say the least. "Well, the bridge is almost complete, but I have a question. Not that I'm not glad, but why would you stick around even after I lied about the mission?" Tezuna questioned. Kakashi crossed his arms and replied, "Not doing the right thing when you know it's right is something a coward would do. A friend of mine once told me, those who break the rules are scum, but those who abandon others for the sake of a mission are worse than scum. Besides," Satsuki started with a smirk, "now we can brag to the other genins that we went on an A-ranked mission," she commented, making Tezuna bark out a laugh. Dinner went on with mindless chatter. Everything was going fine, except for Inari, whose eyes were shadowed by his hair. He looked at Naruto and saw he made another joke, making the others laugh again. He couldn't stand it. Naruto looked like he had no worries at all, completely carefree. He had flashbacks of his father Kaiza playing with him, saving him, protecting him, and then Kaiza being publicly executed, which snapped him. Slam! Everything whipped their heads in Inari's direction. He slammed his fist on the dinner table and was currently glaring at Naruto. Naruto, noticing this, raised an eyebrow. "You all right, Inari?" he asked him. "Why do you try so hard? You can't defeat Gato. The weak will always lose to the strong." "You're right," Naruto started. "The weak will lose to the strong. That's why Gato and his men will lose." "Shut up. I'm sick of you acting so carefree all the time. You're always fooling around all the time. You don't know a thing about suffering or how hard life can be." By the end of his rant, his eyes were watering. Kakashi flinched. Saying Naruto didn't much about suffering was the understatement of the century. His medical records were proof of that. Naruto widened his eyes and immediately shut them. Before anyone could say another word, the temperature in the room went down, making it chilly. When Naruto snapped his eyes open, they were red with slits, scaring everyone and putting Kakashi on guard. "Look at you. Bitching about your life? Naruto whispered, yet everyone heard him perfectly. Tsunami and Tazuna were shocked that someone so kind-hearted held so much fury. Telling me I don't know how hard my life can be. Naruto started. At this point Inari turned pale with fear. Naruto stood up abruptly, and Sakura, despite being scared shitless, tried to stop him. Naruto, that's uncalled dash, and immediately shut up when Naruto directed his gaze and wrath at her. Shut up, Haruno, he repeated, making her nearly start shaking with fear. You sit here at your house, with a grandfather who's trying his best to bring hope back to your country, and a mom that cooks for you, and cares about you. I didn't even know who my parents were until I turned 6. Were you kicked out of the orphanage the moment you learnt how to stand on your 2 feet? Were you beaten and hated because people thought you were a demon in human skin? Were you attacked nearly every day? There are people younger than you who have it much worse than you ever have. His voice taking a demonic edge at the end. And he had a dark contentment in seeing everyone pale at him raising his voice, even Kakashi. Even though his tone was aggressive, his actions were anything but. He gently pushed his chair back and walked out the door. He stopped but didn't turn around. I'm working some of my anger off. Don't follow me, Naruto said in a blank tone. Kakashi-sensei, Sakura said after a moment. Naruto was making that up, right? None of that really happened, did it? You're right, Sakura. None of that happened, Kakashi said with an eye smile, making everyone release a breath they didn't know they were holding. That was the sugar-coated version, he replied, keeping his eye smile, making the others widen their eyes in horror. With Naruto was seeing red. He couldn't believe the nerve of that kid, telling him he had no idea about suffering. Naruto created 400 shadow clones. Mass battle royale. Anything is allowed. Keep the jutsus below B rank though, Naruto said. The clones all gulped. Not even Naruto himself wanted to face his own wrath. He ran at the clones with the intent to cause mass havoc. He drove through the clones like butter. Most of them stood no chance against Naruto, but a lot of them got lucky hits on him, like scratches on his cheek with kunai or punches to the chest, but he never stopped running at them. He launched a massive fireball into the sky, and the clones backed off before firing water bullets and lightning pillars at him. The real Naruto drove through him a little, and there were currently 250 left. The clones all started attacking Naruto with the intent to kill. Naruto attacked the clones before flaring his chakra, pushing the clones back. The sky turned gray and clouds covered the sky. Naruto went through a couple hand signs: tiger, rat, horse, monkey, dog, dragon, ram. He lifted his left hand and suddenly it was coated in lightning. It started raining lightly, and Naruto pulled his arm back, making the clones take a step back, some in weariness and some in anticipation. Raitun, Kirin, Naruto said, and a large chimeric creature materialized from the lightning in the sky. Kirin, scatter. Naruto pushed his arm back and pointed at the clones. The Chilin roared and dispelled, before materializing again and launching itself at the clones. All Naruto saw was a large blue flash, before instantly all 200+ clones dispelled. The puffs of smoke coupled with all the debris and smoke in the air made it nearly impossible to see. When the dust cleared out, Naruto gawked at a massive crater in the ground. He couldn't believe that this was his creation. Those were his last thoughts before he fainted, the darkness overtaking him for the night. Next morning, a girl who looked to be in her mid-teens, she had silky black hair that flowed to her chest. She wore a light pink chipao and carried a basket. She was walking to the forest so she could collect herbs for her master, humming a soft tune. She stared wide-eyed, openly gawking at the massive crater in the ground. She noticed a boy in the middle. He looked sort of cute, she deduced. Then she recognized him as one of the shinobi that were fighting Zabuza. She could easily kill him right now to prevent complications later, and she walked over to him. She walked over to him, reaching out slowly, her hand making its way to his neck, before she blinked and he was gone. I wouldn't do that if I were you, she heard from behind, before gasping and turning around sharply. She saw Naruto staring at her with a bored gaze, but it felt like he was staring into her soul. Little did she know, he was having an internal conversation. "Kit, I'm certain it's her. This is the fake hunter from yesterday. I recognize her scent," Kurama said to Naruto with narrowed eyes. "I reached the same conclusion you did. I can see from her posture that she's ready to flee in a moment's notice, even though she's pretending to be a civilian. I'll play along for now, though." "What are you doing here?" Naruto asked in a blank tone. "I was collecting some herbs for a friend. He's sick, you see," Haku told him softly. Well, I kinda destroyed the forest in a fury yesterday," Naruto told her sheepishly, making her deadpan at him. "Let's go to another area. I'll help you collect herbs for him," Naruto told her. Make her smile. "I can get some insights on his skills," Haku thought. "Are you a shinobi?" Haku questioned him. "What did it look like?" Naruto snarked at her, making her roll her eyes at him. "But isn't it dangerous? What if you get killed?" she questioned, feigning concern. The boy nearly took down Zabuza. He wouldn't die easily. "Well, if I get killed, that means I was meant to die. There's no use trying to escape my death. Besides, the moment I put this headband on, I was ready to die," Naruto lectured her softly. She looked at him with curious eyes. "Why do you fight? Do you fight for your precious people?" she asked him, and his thoughts immediately went to Satsuki before going to Ayame and Tuchi and the third Hokage. "That's right. I fight to protect those who I care about, and those that can't protect themselves," Naruto stated firmly, but more to himself than her. She gazed at him with a look in her eyes akin to respect. "Then you will become strong. I believe that when one has somebody to protect, that's when they truly become strong," she told him, making him widen his eyes for a second before he smiled at her. At Tazuna's house, everyone was eating breakfast, Naruto's stunt forgotten. "Has Naruto returned yet?" Satsuki asked Kakashi, who gazed at her. "No, not yet. I was going to get him after breakfast," Kakashi told her. "It's fine. I'll get him now. The idiot's going to miss breakfast," she told him, walking out the door, and everyone went back to eating. Satsuki sensed for Naruto's signature and located it a couple 100 meters away and ran over to his direction. She saw him talking to another girl and making the black-haired girl giggle softly with one of his jokes. This made her feel slightly angry and jealous for some reason. She wondered why she had those feelings. She observed them interact for a little longer, and when the girl left, Satsuki walked up to Naruto, glaring at him. "Who was that girl?" she demanded, making Naruto raise an eyebrow. "Why do you care?" he asked her suspiciously, making her blush a little, but she huffed and crossed her arms. "I don't, but it might be an enemy, so I should know these things, dope," she told him angrily. "Oh really? 'Cause you're acting like a possessive girlfriend right now," Naruto teased her with a smirk, making her face turn red. It's nothing like that, Bibaka," she sputtered. Naruto took pity on the girl, so he stopped teasing her. "Her name was Haku, and she told me she was collecting herbs for a friend of hers," Naruto spoke. Satsuki narrowed her eyes for a second before she softened her gaze. "I was really worried about you yesterday, you know?" she spoke softly, making him widen his eyes a little. "You shouldn't run off like that. What if she was an assassin, or if Zabuza himself came here?" she admonished him half-heartedly but keeping her soft tone. Naruto was surprised. There weren't many people who cared for him this way. Other than the Hokage, no one really paid attention to Naruto. "Don't worry about me. If someone came at me with intentions to harm, they'd get a nasty surprise," he said with a wink, making her shake her head at him. They walked back together, chatting mindlessly, before Satsuki walked over to a lake and practiced her water walking, and Naruto went with Tazuna to guard him while he was building the bridge. The next morning, Naruto woke up to hear muffled screaming. He widened his eyes and grabbed a Hiraishin kunai that was sealed in his arm while running down the stairs, and he saw Tsunami being dragged away by two thugs while Inari was shouting at them to let her go. Naruto threw a kunai right above Tsunami's head, and in a yellow flash he knocked the two thugs out. Inari stood there wide-eyed, and Tsunami was already unconscious. When Inari directed his gaze to Naruto, Naruto smiled at him and ruffled his hair. "You stood up to those thugs even though they were stronger than you. That makes you a hero, Inari," he told him softly, making Inari beam. "Did the others already leave?" Naruto asked Inari, and he nodded. Naruto grabbed those two and shunshined to the corner of the bridge. He slit their throats to spare them the pain and tossed them over the bridge. He looked over and saw Kakashi fighting Zabuza. Sakura was guarding Tazuna, and Satsuki was inside a cage of ice? Ice release, Naruto thought. He sent a couple clones to assist Sakura and Kakashi, while the real him shunshined inside the mirrors. He appeared in the nick of time too, to save Satsuki from being turned into a human pincushion. Satsuki whipped her head to him the moment she felt his signature, and Naruto immediately noticed her eyes were red, one with a single tomo and the other with two, instead of onyx black.